join us. Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting of the Deschutes County Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. It is June 6, 2022. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And I want to welcome Ryan for taking over, I believe, as our new video person. Yes, thank you.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
He's got the video on, or no, the video may not be on, but the mics are on.
Is it working?
Yeah.
It said, our screen says the meeting will begin shortly. So I think we have to have the meeting begin. Maybe, maybe not. Okay.
There
Ah,
it is.
Yes, there we are. Yes, we have just done the Pledge of Allegiance, and now we have our video working, and we're welcoming Ryan to his new position. First item is a review of the monthly financial reports. I believe we have 2 months we're looking at. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Commissioners. And I thought we would just go over the April highlights, if that's all right with everyone.
I actually have a question. I left a message for Wayne. I was looking at these reports, and all of a sudden I realized that last October, we quit having 911 employees on that position control summary.
Sure.
911 disappeared. They used to be right after solid waste. And I don't remember what happened.
Right, we'll look into that. A lot of it is automated, so it could be that something is just going on in the report code right now, so we'll just add it back.
Okay.
I'd like to see it in there.
I know, because remember 911, we worry about them and how many vacancies they have and everything, and I'm going,
Sure.
yeah. I went back and looked, and last time we had it on that report was September of last year.
Okay. We'll
Okay.
put it in there, yeah.
I noticed that exact same thing, so good catch, Commissioner. You
Wow.
let off with it, because I was,
No, but I'm
highlighting
going
them.
No, this is terrible. I went back and I went like, oh my gosh. Because I know we usually are talking about 911 and what is the, oh, and I would like to point out that solid waste in March, the year was 75% complete, and their resources were at 76%. So that number actually flips, it changes in April.
Okay.
So, okay, go ahead with April.
And I apologize, it's kind of last minute here, so I'm just filling in for Wayne. He's not feeling great today, so I'll go over what I can help with this, and then if you guys have questions that I can't answer right now, I'm happy to go back and send an email to the 3 commissioners to answer those with more detail here. So our portfolio balance at the end of April was $269 million, which is a decrease of approximately $9 million from March and an increase of $30 million from last April. One of my notes on here is that I recently signed off on the ARPA dollars, American Rescue Plan Act. That'll be another $19.2 million, which is investable and will go into this portfolio for a short amount of time because we have obligated $37 million. So as we start paying out those contracts, especially if they're lump sum, that'll come just kind of directly back out of the portfolio there. Net investment income for the month is $126,000, approximately $7,000 more than last month, and $39,000 less than April of 2021. Year-to-date earnings of $1.2 million are $744,000 less than year-to-date earnings last year. All portfolio category balances are within policy limits, with the exception of the local government pool there due to the transition of the CFO. I believe that policy level is $52 million, and you can see on the graphic at the top left on page 3 that we're at $54.869 million right now. So I'm sure we will be getting that within the policy level soon here. The pool interest rate increased 10 basis points from 55 points to 65 points effective April 7th, 2022. Another 10 basis points increase is expected on May 10th. The benchmark returns for 24 and 36-month treasuries are up again from the prior month by 16 and 42 basis points respectively. Our average portfolio yield is still at 58 basis points here, which is no change. And I think those are pretty much the largest things of consideration on page 3. Are there any questions about that? Or I know Commissioner Chang, you serve on the Investment Advisory Council, I believe, so if you have anything you'd like to add to that.
Nothing to add, thanks.
On page 4, I'm just going to highlight the 24-month historic investment returns. As you can see, the two things I want to highlight are the LGIP rate, which we just talked about, is slowly going up. We're going to be up to 65 basis points here soon. But also the corporate bond rate and the 2-year Treasury rate, the federal Treasury rate, are increasing drastically. Both of this is likely due to the Fed contracting resources and basically the price of debt going up now.
Recording in progress.
Oh, okay. Well, we're catching up here, aren't we?
Like I was saying, the Treasury rate and the corporate bond rate are probably being influenced by interest rates going up right now by the Federal Reserve, who is fighting inflation by contracting kind of cash flow right now. And so we could continue to see that 2-year Treasury rate and the corporate bond rate, for that matter, to continue to increase. And that would give us some increased interest income off of our portfolio here. The 3-year portfolio balance continues to be kind of steady over a long term, going up. And then we briefly spoke about position control, but we had an increase in April of approximately 6 FTE or 6.5 FTE here. We are trending downward at 9.82% unfilled, but as Commissioner Adair said, we are not looking at the 911 fund on here, which also has a fairly large vacancy rate currently right now. So, and if you'd like more specifics on what those 6.5 positions were, I'm happy to get you to those in an email. I don't have that at this point in time.
Oh, Dan, I do have a question.
Sure.
We're missing 3 people now in the finance department?
I don't think this is completely up to date. We have filled both the payroll position and the accounting position at this point in time. Christo and Kimberly are our new employees. They're great so far. We're really blessed to have them. And then there is one open position right now, which was approved by the board for the ARPA kind of grant manager position. And that just finished up recruiting, and we're going to probably go out for interviews here in 2 weeks.
So it may be 1 instead of 3 as of today.
As of today, I think
Yep.
we're at 1.
Great.
Moving forward, I'm going to go through a lot of the summaries here and kind of skip past those and just move straight on to page 11, which is our general fund report. A couple things to be aware of is on page 11 is the clerk's revenue, which that's based on recording fees. And I know we've talked about this before, but they're trending less than budgeted by about $400,000 right now. So that's going to have a little bit of an effect on our overall general fund resources. Something that's new on here, though, is subnote J, which is projected personnel savings for the district's attorney's office. And we hadn't had that in here previously, but now we're looking at almost $800,000 in projected personnel savings for the DA's office, which is actually bringing up our projected balance. We were at around $12 million, but if you go to the total fund balance at the end of page 11, you'll see that we're now projecting $12.58 million for the general fund, and that would be the beginning working capital in fiscal year 23 that we have budgeted as well.
I did notice that the property tax collection is at 99%.
Yep.
That is quite amazing.
It's great, and I was talking to Cam Sparks, and our property taxes came in this last month much higher than we expected to, that collection rate. So we're looking pretty healthy there currently as well. Moving on to page 13, this is going to go over the transient room tax fund, Fund 160 and 170 respectively. The transient room tax is coming in higher than budgeted as well. I just wanted to point out subnotes B and subnotes E. Those variance is right there of $767,000. That's an increase to what we had budgeted for the COVA contract, because that's based on a percentage. So it's quite likely at the end of the year, COVA will receive close to $3.9 million in transient room tax, and the 1% TRT, which is Fund 170, all of that goes to the Fair and Expo, either the reserves or for Fair and Expo for marketing. And that's subnote E, which is going to be an additional 102,000 more than projected, and the 238,000 there more than projected too. So we're definitely collecting TRT at a healthy rate as well, and it's been a good season for short-term rentals and whatnot. Any questions?
Dan, if you could connect some dots for me back to our budget discussions.
Sure.
With these projections for this year, what will we actually be entering into next fiscal year with in terms of kind of like our beginning balance, and then what'll that look like after we take out the 3.5 million and the other kind of our other commitments for next year?
Sure, yeah. So I'd kind of do this a little bit off the top of my head here, but if we scroll down to the beginning fund balance, the projection here, or I should say the total fund balance, the projection is now at 10.3 million, as opposed to, kind of what we had budgeted there. And then if we look at the size of the new transfers out based on contracts, COVA, 760, and you have about 340 there, so it's about 1.1 million. So I would imagine that our ending fund balance will be about 700,000 over what we had projected. So I've already transferred out that 3.5 million in Fund 160 into Fund 60 now for capital use. But this could mean that there's about 700,000 on top of that 4 million that we left for Sun River if it keeps trending in this direction.
Great. Good to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let's go forward to another highlight here is on page 19, and it's also something we've talked a lot about, but it's the Health Services Behavioral Health Fund, which is in Fund 274.
Oh, I'd just like to point out on Fund 200 that it actually shows the $399,000 in that fund now. So, good to see. Have we actually gotten that second check?
In the ARPA
Page
fund?
14.
I haven't been made aware of it. I would imagine that it should be coming this week, but you're looking at the actuals for, it's projecting that we'll be there by the end of the fiscal year, but I think the actuals for the state and local coronavirus fiscal recovery funds are still 19.1 million there.
Okay. All right. Well, footnote number A, I guess I'm looking at, that we still haven't seen it.
We have not, and like I said a couple weeks ago, I signed off on those funds, so I would imagine, based on what I heard back from the Treasury, that if they have no questions, it should be within 2 to 3 weeks, so we should be seeing those coming soon.
Before year end, do you think?
Yes, it should definitely be before year end.
Okay.
So that's why it's showing in the projection there.
All righty.
Any other questions on American Rescue Plan Act? Moving on to page 19, just wanted to highlight the CCBHC grant revenue for behavioral health. This is going to be subnote B of the Behavioral Health Fund. It looks like it's down about $2.1 million, and we had some conversations around this in the budget. It's a major revenue source for health services, but it's offset by their OHP capitation funds, which is basically a function of how many Medicaid members we have here in the community. So in the last few years, that number has grown exponentially, really, quite a bit. And that has cut into the CCBHC revenue, but it also has increased their Pacific Source contract revenue, so they kind of offset each other. So even though they're down 2.1 there, you can see their OHP capitation in note B is also up 2.23 million. So that's the offset there. Are there any questions about Fund 274 or behavioral health? Okay. Going on to the road fund, Fund 325 on page 22. I'm sure we've talked about this before, but the motor vehicle revenue is up significantly this year. We're expecting to end with about 110% of the motor vehicle revenue that was budgeted, approximately 19 million as opposed to 17.485 million for that fund, which is good.
Is that the gas tax?
That is. I
Okay,
believe
so
that-
when gas goes up, it gets more expensive, then doesn't that revenue go up? Because now people are paying, $5.90, $5.49 a gallon, and it's a percentage, is it not?
I believe it is, and I need
So-
to check on that, but yeah, I think it's partly that, and partly if you raise gas too much, do people stop going?
Driving.
Oh, right, and so does that person.
Yeah, it's probably, I'm sure it's at that point. It's very depressing when you fill up now.
Right.
It's vehicle registrations also, not just fuel.
Thank you, Commissioner Mo. I think those are pretty much the updates that I have for the county funds and the updates for the portfolio. Are there any additional questions or comments regarding the financials?
So actually, the road fund balance on page 22, then, originally it was budgeted at like 2.2 million, and now you're saying it's like projected to be at 6 million.
Correct. That is correct, right. And they have some vacancies, but the majority of it is an increase in revenue, so.
I thought their vacancy rate was actually the lowest of all departments, the road fund.
Right. They have, from what I'm looking at right here, they have 99% of their personnel, or 98% of their personnel coming in, so their vacancy would be very small.
Yes.
Yeah, that seems correct to me.
According to Chris Doty, people like to work for the county and the road department. It's a good job.
Well, I
And they
think all
are-
the department heads are proud of their.
Well, his numbers,
careers.
though. He has the best numbers. Because they don't, in the summer, like other people that work for road crews have to, work a lot of overtime, 6 days a week or whatever. And our work is consistent. Rain or snow.
He's still going to struggle to find some seasonal flaggers, though, apparently. Phil.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you, and Commissioner Adair, I will get back to you on 911 and send the commissioners an email about their vacancy rates, et cetera.
Okay, and solid waste did go down to 82%. It was through the year of 83.3, and the prior month, it was still above the year-to-date percentage. So just watching that number, how soon will we have May's done?
How soon will we have Negus done?
May's financial statement?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe 2 weeks?
I'll have to look into that. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay, because I think usually we get it about the third week of the month. But of course, it will be the last one for the year, or for fiscal year, so. Well, it'll be interesting to see when you get those numbers.
Yeah, I think it does come in around the 21st. I think.
Right.
So.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, item number 2 is discussion and direction for the drought funds. Thank you, Eric.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Eric Kropp, Deputy County Administrator. Joining me, I think it's online, will be Scott Cooper with Neighbor Impact. He just sent me the presentation, so let me pull it off the flash drive and get it loaded for you.
Okay.
Reading the bill, it says it's to provide domestic and community well assistance. I didn't realize that, is there a difference between doing a loan or just granting people a couple $1,000s to help with their bill? I know my neighbor had a $20,000 well bill that kept popping up as he got further into the job.
When I have, a direct phone call request from someone who had to replace the well and then called and said, is there any relief dollars available?
I know.
I've got that situation also.
does mention the possibility of retroactive loans, so I'll be interested to hear from Neighbor Impact about that.
Well, because, this number was from wells that went dry and had to be redrilled. I talked to 3 well drillers last year to come up with approximation for Representative Breeze Iverson.
I don't know if we have availability to get people on. I don't know if Scott's joining us in person or via Zoom, but. Let me check. We may have to come back to this item because Scott may be trying to get in online.
We're a few minutes early.
Yeah. You want to go to the IGA?
Sure.
Back to this one?
Of course.
All right, we'll start over for the draft IGA on the Coordinated Office on Homelessness. For the record, Eric Kropp, Deputy County Administrator. As the board knows, House Bill 4123 passed, which provides $1 million as a pilot program to Central Oregon. Deschutes County and the 4 cities within Deschutes County have signed on to the legislation and have agreed to move forward with the Coordinated Office on Houselessness. There is a draft IGA that we'll talk about today that will also go to the cities in the next couple of weeks.
So we are switching the items, and now we have the Neighbor Impact.
Right.
We just have
Presentation.
the presentation, but I don't think we have Scott.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm just acknowledging that we are on a different item that's on then it's on the
Yes.
video.
We just
now.
went to item number 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It's
So
a-
the draft IGA, I'll just provide a quick overview of the IGA. Under recitals, under item C, the office will be under the general direction of the county administrator's office. There will be a board of directors made up of an elected official from each city within Deschutes County, and also for a county commissioner from Deschutes County. Commissioner Adair will be the county's rep. Moving along on item I, the office will include an advisory panel made up of experts that provide services on houselessness and a broad range of different services. Item L, for the first 2 years, the office will be funded with the state funds of $1 million, $500,000 for each year, and then years 3, 4, and 5, the coordinated office and the entities involved will have to determine how to continue the funding for years 3, 4, and 5. Under the terms of agreement, item number 2, this talks about those items are those years 3, 4, and 5. One of the main responsibilities of the joint or the coordinated office and the board of directors will be to adopt a strategic plan. That will be within 1 year of receiving funding from the state of Oregon. The strategic plan will help drive the initiatives and the work of the coordinated office. And then the only other thing I would point out is that the board of directors will amend the IGA and come back to the entities to talk about how future years are funded. There's been discussions about having different tiers based on commitments from the entities, but really, once we get the executive director on board and the board of directors is up and running, they'll work on amending the IGA. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
So there's a proposal that member obligations, A, county, B, Bend, so referring to the city of Bend, or referring to item B, it says Bend will provide staff liaison for 2 years, office facility for the director and support staff. So is a county employee going to be working at the city of Bend's offices?
That's correct. The city of Bend has identified the Rainbow Motel. There's some administrative areas of that where the staff will be located. The employees of the office will be county employees, but it'll be working in a City of Bend facility.
And legally, I mean, this person will be hired as a county employee, but I mean, they work for the coordinated office, so, I mean, they're working for all of these jurisdictions, so, kind of a certain amount of spreading around of the support services necessary for the position seems like an appropriate structure for me.
And this concept is similar. For example, the Community Development Department has permit techs that work at the City of La Pine City Hall and City of Sisters City Hall, with a lot of city-provided resources, desks, chair, et cetera, in those locations as well. So we're certainly used to this model working.
Yeah, I think the key concept is the executive director will be a county employee and report to the county administrator or designee. The employees will not work directly for the board of directors. We went away from that model. Then we kind of looked at the 911 and the progression of that over time, and really felt that it was important that the executive director report just to one person. Certainly the board of directors will have input on the hiring and feedback in terms of the performance, but the position will be a county employee working for the county administrator or his designee.
And I support that. We have been through that with our 911, so there can be a room full of bosses if we're not careful, and then it's simple as who's doing the annual review and who has the authority to kind of document that report. Well, so I see this is the structure. This is still that half a step before engagement or whatever it is, but this is the structure. And when I say engagement, is in what's the kind of the vision? What are the outcomes? Referring to the culture of the community. In the end here, we want to help people that are asking for help, but we still have this situation where if people aren't asking for help and they just kind of want to hang out, what does that mean and how are we going to deal with it in the long run? So I'm just referring to that.
So my question is about how the roles of the advisory panel and the roles of the oversight board in relation to the plan that's going to be developed. Maybe this is just left up to the oversight board, but I'd like to have a sense of how much of a role the advisory panel is going to get in the development of this plan, or in the if the group decides, or if the coordinated office decides not to just completely scrap the emergency homeless task force plan, but can you use that as a starting point? Who's going to get to decide what goes in the final plan?
Yeah, I see the role of the advisory panel is to provide that input to the board of directors, much like staff to the board of county commissioners or a city council. One of the key roles of the board of directors is to adopt the strategic plan, but I see the advisory panel as providing kind of that expert advice and input to the board of directors. Whether or not the strategic plan will be adopted by the county, by the broader county and all the city councils, I don't know if that's been determined yet. But really, the strategic plan, once adopted, will drive the work of the office.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the recruitment for the advisory panel, and it just seems like we would want to be able to describe a pretty meaningful role for people in order to get their organizations to commit to participating, because it could conceivably be quite a lot of meetings, and I would want to know that my input was was going to be used in particular ways before I committed to that.
I mean, the way staff sees it is, it's kind of like the planning commission to the Board of County Commissioners, where planning commission provides input and recommendations, but ultimately it's up to the board on what to adopt in that scenario. I would see the same parallel structure to this.
Okay, thank you.
I know I have said something to Holly Jukes and then also BLM, who clearly have roles to play in the county that should be a part of that group.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I see this as a starting point. As soon as get the cities to engage, referring to, the Pine Sisters and Redmond, there may be proposals for slight changes, but this is a good structure to get started.
Has Dave looked at it?
Yes, Dave has. His legal stamp isn't on, but he's reviewed the different versions.
Has anybody else approved this,
No,
accepted
it's
it?
coming to the county first.
Yeah, okay.
And it's
Yeah,
scheduled
just
for the
making sure.
cities later. The way it's structured is that it'd be county administrator signature. There's a couple different approaches we can take to this. The board could approve county administrator signature as long as there aren't major changes to it, or if the board wants to see it as it goes through the cities. Those are all various options. I think what we're looking for today is are we generally on the right track? If the board is comfortable with approving county administrator signature, we can certainly go there, or we could bring it back as after the cities review it.
The one other kind of aspect of this that I'm still scratching my head about a little bit is individual jurisdictions, on-ramp and off-ramp. That this is being set up overall as, an anticipated 5-year framework that could be extended or, could be terminated before then. But it seems like it's set up to be, those decisions extension or shortening would be by the full group, as opposed to individual jurisdictions deciding I want to participate now, I don't want to participate now. Is that accurate, or?
Yeah, the goal is to develop, the strategic plan. Once people sign off on it, then we need to implement it. If boards or councils change, the idea is that we continue on with the 5-year plan.
Okay.
But in terms of, if I hear your question, but can local governments opt in for the first 2 years when the state's contributing, and then what is their off-ramp?
Yeah, I'm partially interested in, commitment to implementing the plan, but I'm also partially interested in commitment to funding as well. And I don't know what the best way to structure this is to get that commitment from jurisdictions, but that's one of the things that we need to be mindful of in the way that we set up this IGA.
Well, there's a different way to look at this. The fact that, we hopefully aren't going to need to spend money on homeless issues as a growing situation, as in shrinking this problem and managing it better instead of having to think of it as a growing scenario out there, I guess, is my point. So, and I know that may be a rosy view, but I'm just saying as a vision, as a culture of what we're trying to do here. Somebody joins the community, hopefully has resources, be able to get a job and get housing, and we don't have a growing homeless population. So I'm just trying to point out that we don't need to think of this thing as, it's just going to keep growing over time. The office of.
I'm not talking about it growing over time. I'm talking about it, having continuity after the first 2 years of state funding are done. I'd like to know that the other jurisdictions the jurisdictions that sign on are committed, to seeing through the implementation of the plan. At this point, I have, it's very hard for me to predict whether we're going to spend 2 years trying to develop a plan, or whether we're going to be able to kind of pick up work that has already been done as a kind of a good first draft and rapidly move to a strategic plan that we can implement. In which case, we can use the remainder of the $1 million from the first 2 years for implementation. So, I mean, in a worst-case scenario, if the development of a plan drags on for 2 years, I'd like to know that the other jurisdictions are on board to actually engage in the implementation phase. And then, regardless of talking about kind of growing response or anything like that.
So Eric, will we be paying Bend, the city of Bend, for the office facility then? Or is that just a in-kind donation?
In kind. And yeah. Similarly, we'll be running all the administrative functions through the county as in-kind services in terms of billings and contracts and things like that.
But so to kind of return to that consideration, I mean, is that the way that this is structured right now? You can't, like, you can decide to withdraw, an individual jurisdiction could decide to withdraw at any point in time, but the overall structure is, would require the whole group to dissolve or extend.
Early discussions are part of signing on to the House bill was there's a commitment to find funding for years 3, 4, and 5. And so really, the county and all 4 cities made that commitment. In early discussions, we've talked about different tiers, and so if an entity did not want to continue financing it or funding the office, then there might be different tiers where they're still at the table, because that's, the whole idea of having a coordinated office is to have all the entities at the table. So there could be some possibilities of different tiers of financial commitment. But really, that's kind of one of the first roles of the board of directors to sort through. But signing on the legislation, all entities agreed that they will work to find funding for years 3, 4, and 5 for this office.
I think one of the keys is we're all beginning this new process together, and so we don't have a model under this House Bill 4123 to rely on from any other organization. So one of the things that we've coordinated with the city of Bend that we think would be really valuable is if all of the 8 pilot projects across the state, if we convene on a regular basis to see what are the best practices to answer the questions you're asking us today. What does it mean to have the advisory panel? How do we think about funding in years 3, 4, and 5? I think there's a lot of at what point is the strategic plan adopted? Hopefully it's sooner than later. And then how do we work toward implementation? So I think we hope to learn from while I expect we will be a leader in this as we are in many things, we also hope to learn from our other partner pilot organizations and counties across the state.
Those were my big questions. I'm otherwise pretty comfortable with this as a working draft for this IGA.
And I do believe we have a meeting the following Friday afternoon. So,
Yes, that's
with the
first meeting
group.
of the board of directors.
I moved it up from July. I thought we better meet sooner rather than later. So anyway,
And Chair Adair, that's exactly right. And as I've learned, my colleague with the city of Bend, Eric King, will be out of town. I believe Eric Kropp will be out of town. I think Mickey Dirting may be out of town, so I may
who
be.
else is out of town?
A lot of people are out of town except for me, so I will be there to help support our first meeting. Others may be participating virtually, I hope.
There you
but,
go.
Yeah,
Virtually.
yeah,
Okay. Aren't you lucky, Nick?
I am.
Well, I just thought it just seemed like we need to just get the group together. So,
We do.
And hopefully some of them will be in person, not on Zoom.
And we'll be hosting here.
Yes, good.
Is the board comfortable with approving kind of a conceptually the draft that might help with the cities?
Yeah, I'm supportive. As I say, this is a version 1.0 of the document to be, feedback is fine and slight edits or whatever we need to do. So I support this as the starting point.
Of course. Thank you. Great. So now should we go back to number 2? The drought funds from the state.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon, Scott.
It is my first opportunity to say, good afternoon, Chair Adair. I haven't had that opportunity to use those two words.
There you go.
So congratulations to
And
you.
it's, what, June 6th? This is good. This is great.
So we're here today from Neighbor Impact, Scott Cooper, Executive Director, Patty Wilson, Deputy Executive Director, and John Cox, Executive Director of Lending, to talk to you about funding related to dry wells. Referring to your previous conversation, I want you to know we are on board and we are engaged in this process and ready to be a solution to moving this money fast. Are you doing a setup or?
Sure.
Do one, or what?
Sure.
How are we doing this?
As the board knows, the state passed Senate Bill 5561, which provides drought funds to Deschutes County. Deschutes County was awarded $585,200. The requirements of the loan or of the program is that it's to provide domestic and community well assistance. We met as staff and looked at the program and then reached out to Neighbor Impact. As staff, we are recommending to work with Neighbor Impact on the program because they have the infrastructure for this type of program where we don't quite have that in-house. What we're recommending is a loan program, but a grant program is certainly an option for the board as well. But with that, I would like to turn it over to Scott to talk a little bit about the proposal.
Do you have the PowerPoint that I
Yes.
emailed earlier?
Yep.
So John Cox is going to present the PowerPoint real quickly. Bottom line is, this is work we're already doing, that we already have a dry loan, so this would be additional capital in the existing program. So John will give you a quick overview of how that would look like.
Okay, are we gonna throw?
Yep, it's
Yeah,
projected.
we're going to pull it up.
He's got it up.
We've already practiced. We've got it up. Ryan is new, so it's his lucky first day.
This is the tense moment in every presentation when you find out the tech is going to work.
I know, the technology.
And he's doing a great job.
We're up, and that's,
All right.
I think that's the down button, unless you want me to do it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Scott.
It worked.
All right, good afternoon. So I'm John, the lending director at Neighbor Impact, and I'm here to share with you what we do at Neighbor Impact within the lending department. We're a federally chartered community action agency. Our lending program has been around since 1994. Our current portfolio consists of 220 loans and roughly $4.4 million. All loans are originated, processed, underwritten, and then approved by a committee, and then we take on the servicing after the fact as well. Over the life of our lending program, Neighbor Impact has funded roughly 690 loans for approximately $12.6 million. So the loan program is very mature and has been around, as I stated, since 1994.
So those loans average, what, $20,000?
It depends. We have a few different programs within the lending program, but on average, the wells are running about 23,000 on average. And really depending on where you are geographically, the water tables are higher in La Pine, so the wells don't cost as much. You head out to Alfalfa Market Road, and it's the exact opposite. So you're going down to sometimes 850 feet. And then another side to that is that what are the materials in the ground and how much that affects the cost of the drill.
And the home preservation loan program are well projects all that you do under this program, or is there a wide variety of?
That's taken over as a precedence and as an emergency because people with no water, we put them immediately to the top of our waiting list. On average, we run close to 80 people at all times on our waiting list. But with water issues, we've pushed them to the top, and we've met them first, and we continue to do so. They are our #1 priority right now. And now that the additional help is coming in from the state and through the county, it's enabling us now to get back to what we do as a whole, which is address ADA and leaky roofs and, faulty porches, anything that addresses a health and safety issue. We've really just focused on septic and well in recent months because of this drought scenario.
Got it.
Thanks.
You want home preservation loan or tax?
Sorry, I don't have my mouse. Okay, so our home preservation loan program as a whole, the purpose of it is to retain ownership and preserve the housing stock in Central Oregon and prevent blight. We make this available to low to moderate income households. It's generally below 80% is the sweet spot. We do on occasion go up to 100% if deemed, a medical emergency or a hardship or whatnot. We offer flexible terms, and basically we work as a lending department to focus on sustainability, where the interest driven off the revenue, off the programs, as well as admin fees, as well as donations and other grants that helps support the program.
So do you have funds for that program right at the moment?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Not enough.
More than a few more months.
And
Only for a few more months, you,
At the rate we're going, we will consume all those programs within the next 2 to 6 months.
because I'm hearing about homes in Lapine that, need more than a couple of thousand in order to bring them up to sustainability.
and is that federal in origin?
We're using mostly our historical corpus, which it was all mostly derived from the community development, a series of community development block grants applications, as well as funds from NeighborWorks America. But it's probably 90% CDBG. I think we've had 23 CDBGs over time since 1994. So we're rotating that corpus as more money comes in. Whether with the rise in interest rates, whether we see more money coming in, I suspect that will slow down the refinancing and slow down the flow of money back in. Next slide.
Well, yeah, and then just to, basically just to pin down our existing program, our current loan rate is 4.75%, and we tie our rates to prime. We adjust them quarterly, and we generally try to keep them well under market, especially in second position. We work with the borrowers to determine their repayment capacity, so some of these are deferred outright until they sell the house, move out, or turn it into a rental, or we put them on an interest-only payment to say, you don't want to see this lien grow in size over time, you always know what it is, we can set you up on that. Or, hey, how would you like to see this go away in 15 years? Set them up on a loan program like that. So I'm very flexible depending on these people's capacity to pay.
So what is your interest rate today?
4.75%. So the next slide is dry wells, and since July of 2021, basically to date, almost a full fiscal year for Neighbor Impact, we have received 40 applications. Out of those, we have funded 18 loans for dry wells, and this deployment was in the amount of $427,000. The county has offered a partnership in the amount of $585,000 to get out to dry well recipients, and with my math, that's 25 loans on average, $23,700 per loan. Neighbor Impact expects to deploy this entire $585,200 within the 12-month period, with maybe a buffer of a month or two on either side from start to finish.
So there were 22 loans that you didn't fund. Can you give me a reason why that they weren't funded?
Different reasons, really. What we are is we were like kind of the main go-to, so all these drillers in the region, from Aiken to Abbas to you name it.
Mathers, yes, I
They're
know.
all saying, call Neighbor Impact, and because it's gonna cost me how much, so we go through an intake process, and for one reason or another, maybe they're just down below Lapine in the tip of Klamath County, sorry, don't qualify for that. Maybe they have, they inquired but found out that, their family, their son is gonna take care of them for this or that. Maybe they make too much money and they can't afford. We move them to apply for a home equity line of credit if they're bankable. This program is kind of set in between where you can't really get that home equity line of credit. Maybe a lot of banks don't like to lend on rural acreage. There's a lot of different things. People can't find their way from point A to point B, and they fall off. And we have such demand and have so much to do that we quite frankly just don't have the time to follow up with people. They need to help themselves in those terms, and that is maybe part of the. The other thing that we did, and the reason why the number is 40, is we've been tracking this dry well issue and this drought scenario. So we have the data, and we show the people. We always encourage to apply, whether or not you don't think you're going to follow through or not. I mean, really, at this point, it's a balancing act too, because now the state has come out with these, a bigger 5.5 bucket, and they can apply directly at the same time we're doing loans. So. Kind of giving people both options that the state allocation isn't going to last forever, and you may want to get this process started, up and going and approved, and then visit it a month down the road now and see where we are. Okay. Next slide. Eligibility. So what it's eligible are single family and 2 to 4 unit properties. We do manufactured homes. It can only be owner occupied. We don't do any spec. No new construction either. We get calls on occasion, we need a new well for this house we're building. No, that's not what we do. It has to be an existing home. Another parameter is they need to be current on their property taxes. And we secure all these loans in second position with a deed of trust, and in addition, we have them sign a promissory note. So the program's done to the standards of typical bank sector lending. Okay, next slide. So the program will run kind of parallel with our preservation loan program. And the repairs that it will cover, as I said, we're deepening existing wells, drilling new wells, and connecting to city sewer where available.
Water.
I mean, to water, private water system.
Sewer in the water pipes.
Sorry, I got a lot going.
We knew what you meant.
What's different from this to our preservation program is that we lend in the 3 tri-counties. This will only be available to the Deschutes County. And what we are proposing is a 10% administrative cost off the top to run and then service the loan after we originate it, underwrite it, fund it, and then service it. As with all our other grants and funding, once the funds are paid back to Neighbor Impact, they will be deposited into our revolving loan fund to go out to the next applicant. I think I already mentioned that we secure these with a deed of trust and a note, correct? And it's recorded with the county, so that's where we are with our
John,
flow.
I want to be really clear that we all understand, the first round goes out to Deschutes County, but when it comes back to the regional fund, and it's available in all 3 counties. We once tried that game of try and keep it all separate and keep all the funds separate. It's a mess. It's an accounting nightmare, and it makes it impossible to say yes or no to similarly situated people. So our policy is we just put it all back into the regional loan fund after the first time out.
So your well fund right now has money in it?
Yes, that's correct.
It's, so,
Actually, it's our home preservation loan, so it covers everybody who needs anything, like I said, from a new roof to ADA compliance to a new septic system. So it covers a broader scope of what we're discussing here. That's why it would be beneficial for us to partner with the county for this additional capital and deploy that and get that out, because we're, in essence, using.
so what's the balance of your remaining funds then for that?
347,000, roughly. We have some of that already committed. It's a constant moving, if you can only imagine, I'm balancing the payoffs too that come in with the originations and the grants, and all in all, enough to run out, within a year if we're not doing something different to raise more.
So I saw the notification about the state allocation for well funds. Do you know how that works, or can somebody explain that? I mean, just so we have a reference point.
Yeah, it's really new, for one.
Yeah, and I didn't study it, so that's.
So that's what happened, is we kind of jumped into action and got these dry well loans going, and now what has come up through the water department?
Water Resources.
Water Resource Department is that they've allocated, $5.5 million to the state, and then they mark it down where the Deschutes gets over and above that, 585,000 specifically for Deschutes County because of it being declared a drought area similar to Klamath. So what we have are two things going on right now at the same time, where they are allowing everyone and anyone at this point who is in a drought declared area to go into their website, fill out a dry well report, and then go through the application process and be basically granted the money up to $40,000 that they have or will be needing to cure their water issue. So as we've done this, we're at this point today, right now, where we're telling people, okay, so I've already had 2 calls today. Another thing to bring up is this is a daily occurrence. So already this morning, 2 calls, one from Warm Springs, which we directed them to that website because they will be able to help them where we won't. Because of the land laws on tribal property, I can't secure a deed of trust on the property, right? So that immediately we send them in that direction, and they are going to be today filling out a state request for grant for water repair. In the other instances, I went out to someone on Friday who wants to continue the process with me. I gave them the link and all the information to apply for the state, and we're going to simultaneously do both right now at the same time, because who knows how long the state allocation is going to last. It could run out in a week. So therefore, we're already set up, and we have them ready to go. We will have them approved by a week. Monday is our committee meeting, and the following week. So then we see how well that's being worked through their intake, and I leave that decision up to the homeowner. Do you want to take care of this right now? In addition to that, this money from the state is going to allow reimbursement. So we could possibly be filling all these loans and then at a later time be reimbursed through the homeowner, and they'll pay off our loan with the state funds. It's very convoluted at this point in time because of everyone rolling out their program. And so
That's interesting to hear those possibilities right now, though. So I didn't think of it like that even. I thought of it as 2 separate things. You're pointing out that, this could be a reimbursement for this.
That's today's guidance.
Yeah, well,
Good for the next 20
today's
years.
possibility that may or may not be true. I understand.
We have it in email form.
No, that's great to know, though. Yep.
And I mean, the real interest from the impact standpoint is it's important for us to do it as a loan as opposed to a grant, to address our sustainability issues. And if that isn't acceptable or not a priority for you, we will consider a grant, but it would have to be structured different on the admin side to cover our sustainability.
You mean more than 10%?
We would if we didn't make them loans. It would be more like 15% if we did it in a grant matter.
And, I mean, that also raises the whole, question of kind of equity over time. I mean, there have been people who've, this dry well problem didn't just start today. So if suddenly we're making grants for people, then the people whose well went dry 18 months ago and who had to take a loan, I mean, it's kind of an inequitable approach to helping residents of the county.
And these are owner-occupied, single-family homes that have done substantially well over the years, and they're in very good equity positions, which has really worked well for our preservation program as a whole over the last 6 years, just because our risk is minimal as these prices continue to rise. Now, that's not going to last forever, as we all know, but we as an organization see that we're helping you, and then you're going to help us by paying us back, and so we can get out and help the next person.
Right. And I mean, given that rising equity, what is it that prevents people from being able to secure a home equity line of credit? Is it
their credit,
Okay.
the nature of the rural area, the land, the amount of acres on the property, their ability to pay is a big focus in banking sector now. You used to be able to just sign on the dotted line, you own how much is this house worth, and you owe how much. So that's kind of where we try to shy away from, but the banks unfortunately have their hands tied, and that's what we're there for as a whole with our preservation program, as well as our down payment assistance program, which I won't go into today, but we fill that niche, and we try to cover that aspect when people are have a lot of equity in their house, but they're not bankable. So we try to fill that gap.
Got it. Okay. And your rate, I mean, you said it's 4.75% right now.
So a month
That's-
ago it was 4%.
Our rate is tied to the prime rate.
Okay.
And it moves up and down. Obviously, interest rates are moving. For purposes of this program, we're going to lock it in at the 4.75, and since it's short term, we will not move it
Right.
during the life of the initial first round.
Okay. And can you remind me, what kind of term do you think you'll set for? Is there a standard, or does it vary by loan you make?
Yeah, I do it on a case-by-case basis, depending on the people's financial situation and what they have left at the end of the month. If this is a single lady out in Prineville rural who has $460 a month in Social Security, and at the end of the month she has about $8 left, she's going to be a deferred loan, and we don't even have to have that discussion. I already know what I'm going to have, what talk I'm going to have based, because I've done their whole application, I've underwritten the whole thing. So then we'll sit down at loan signing, and I'll have that talk with them, and I'll say, look, do you want to see this thing grow over time? Then we'll defer it. You want to see it just stay the same so you're never confused? This is your interest-only payment. You want to see this thing gone in 10 years? Here's how much it would cost a month to see that happen. So I'm flexible with that, and I have the billing software that allows me to do just that.
So is it a 10-year term then?
It depends. I
varies.
can go out to 30. In fact, some of our older preservation loans have no term, and they're just recorded until the deed transfers. If you can believe that. So, yeah, I have maxed that out in the wording in our promissory note and deeds of trust. It's a 30-year maximum term.
Made sense at the time.
We do not do intergenerational lending.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about the concept behind a reverse mortgage. I mean, you're basically helping a person live on the value of their future home.
Yeah, and we cringe, but we do on occasion, on exceptions, go behind a reverse mortgage. But I'll do the math and see what's their life expectancy, where are they where's the equity, and kind of do my calculation. And yeah, we stick our neck out. These are high-risk loans.
Yeah.
So is that state funding for the 5.5 million, is that limited to 80% AMI?
Yes.
It is too.
And that's the thing is that I'm thinking I'm gonna be a little flexible too with the partnership with the county, and that on a case-by-case basis, we will go up to 100% area median income. So fill that gap that the state won't. So therefore, if we send them to the state and they don't qualify because they make too much, then they could still come back to us and do our program. I do that with our preservation program as a whole as well, not just with the water.
So the preservation fund, it does include the septic systems you mentioned. And I know the county's.
Separate.
Okay.
A third one with the South Deschutes Septic, and that's for anyone who just doesn't fit into our program even. That's a last ditch, like to where their credit's so bad, they have negative equity in their property, and maybe some tax liens that aren't paid, and maybe some judgments. So they're not even eligible for our program. We put them into Deschutes County Septic, which I've done one this year out of, quite a big handful, like 50.
Well, just acknowledging, I mean, yeah, there's a partnership there, I mean, because the county's dollars go into that program too.
If you ever want to broaden the restrictions on that, or loosen the restrictions, we'd be happy to do more of those septic.
Well, that's a conversation that could come around, and it could come around in the near future.
Cleveland and has been throwing that around a little bit too, because it's been a little stagnant, because we have had the funds, and you can't be in too bad of a situation. I mean, to be in the Deschutes County Septic, I think I should be paying a little closer attention and putting some of them and spend down that. We have like 87,000 left in that. That's about 2.5 septic systems these days. They're getting to be up to over 20,000 apiece, right?
Well, and we're working on, neighborhood sales and future development, which will go into some groundwater preservation funds, which, so that's about to start to move. It'll be interesting. Well, so I came in hoping there would be a grant opportunity here and a partnership for this loan fund. The proposal is for the whole loan fund, preservation loan fund. So, I mean, it's good information here. I don't have a feel for where we might want to go.
There's one situation I wanted to kind of throw in the mix here, which I don't think is covered by your program. In December or January, there was a decent little bit of news coverage about the Juniper Hilltop Mobile Home Park, their Wellwood Drive. So that's that's like more than 4 units. That's like a whole mobile home park. So I mean, in your program is structured more like kind of individual, residential property scale. So is there a way that you could accommodate working with an entity like that? Or if not, if we wanted to do a little bit of homework on that and see if there was if that was a worthwhile investment, because, people who are living in a mobile home park are definitely, I think our target population for this kind of assistance. Like if it didn't fit within your program, if we carved off a certain amount, would that still work to accept the remainder?
I don't know a huge amount about that particular project and where it's at in terms of infrastructure. Assuming it's a community water project, then, you would expect there would be a owner who's not going to meet our low-income qualifications in there. But if they were individual wells, then they would be able to qualify. We could certainly look at a deal, if that were your direction, to carve off a piece of that and do, but I don't know who the borrowing entity is.
Yeah, I don't.
All of that. Now, we could also to convert that to just a straight-out grant to that group, if that were your desire. But I think at that point, we'd probably be talking about another entity to administer that, because that's not really connected into my service territory. I'm not in the put your water system in business.
Right.
It also falls with the difficulty in securing a deed of trust because of the land law.
Yeah.
Right.
That scenario, and it just, it's what it is.
Yeah, so it might be cleaner to just make it a separate deal.
I mean, the thing we should do is, if given their situation, assuming anybody's still there, is talk to Oregon Business about how fast we can get a community development block, emergency community development block grant to solve that problem. That's where those funds would be. That's an Andrew issue, not a John issue.
Okay.
I really,
That's just been ruled.
because these numbers are from last year, okay, so, and you said you'd given out 18 loans from last year, but I was really thinking, okay, we were allocated funds, if we gave $2,000 out per person, applicants given priority to last year, maybe some of those 18 could get $2,000 to pay down their loan or something, but I really, to make, for $585,000, I just thought it would be more helpful to all those people that got the big bills. I know I helped somebody last year personally, and I believe it was $6,000 that we had to collect in order to, it was a veteran's well that went dry. And it was first $4,000, and then there was some extra work on top of it. So, and it was South County. But I don't know, I just thought, wow, I know we had, I think last year's people need priority, because that's where the number came from.
Well, so I support that in some fashion. I don't know how to
Right.
get there now. So some number that could be for people that just went through a real heavy financial hit. They may be in different financial situations, but it was a shocking number from a dry well. So I don't know if we can come up with a grant program for a portion of these funds.
So if you wanted to do something like that, and you wanted to work with us, we did something similar with the business distress loans during COVID, when Andrew Spreadborough's department, Community Development Department, administered that, and people applied, and we wrote them a flat-out check for their business losses. We could very much model this program after that, if that were your desire.
And we did that with
You're charging
COIC, too.
15%, though, for grants, is what you just said. I mean, that's like 87,000, that's $88,000.
We didn't charge
We
that
did the whole
COVID. I
limit.
don't remember exactly what that was, but those are fairly straightforward and easy ones to do. That's not a very complicated program.
I wouldn't,
And there's no ongoing cost. The issue with a lot of our programming is, if we have to carry it year after year after year and do the servicing on it, that becomes expensive. You got to have some revenue. But yeah, we aren't prepared to give you the solid one on that, but we could certainly bring you the proposal for how to do that if that were your.
So maybe today we kind of take that total number, divide it by some proportion, and then we know where we're going generally. So, as I say, if it's, 585 and
Are you
maybe
trying
there's
to
a-
limit that to lower income folks or everybody who had to put in a well?
well, I'd say everybody's putting gas in their tank right now, and inflation is horrific for the entire, most everyone. I can't imagine who's not really feeling the hurt of today's world, and especially people that, that I hear about that are having to work on their wells, and, their bid is coming back, and then it's coming back again, and it's another 5,000, it's another 10,000, and, and here they are, they're stuck and they have no water, so they've got to do something. So it seems like it's, of course, it's not for people that live on city water, it's for people in the community, in the country.
I mean, I agree. It would be, in the ideal world, we could help everyone, but I think with some of these dry well situations, we have people at risk of becoming homeless, and and there are other people who whose wells go dry, and it's a really unpleasant financial impact for them, but they're not on the brink of homelessness. So.
But didn't they just say you've got you still have your loan fund available for those people? I mean, like, how many applications are you looking at today for dry wells? John?
Go back to that slide. It was a huge amount.
We have like 20 active, and we have another probably 60 that we haven't even got to yet.
And this is for a fund where they were trying to, do ADA, help people who have ADA needs get into their house and fix leaky roofs and, deal with septic systems. And, that home preservation loan program was intended to cover a much broader range of things than dry wells.
Well, so I go back to the Senate bill, and when I heard these dollars were coming, it was happening at the time that the legislature was talking about it. So that's kind of what I trace it back to. The fact that the people in the near past knew this was coming, and it took a while to get here. So I would maybe propose, I'd propose $400,000 for the loan fund, preservation well loan fund, $185,000 for grants, and it's just a one-time kind of look back opportunity. So, that's what I'm thinking, because I know that I got a call months ago saying, oh, it was the most painful financial thing I ever did. Is there relief? And then we said, yes, there's relief coming. And now if we don't at least try to do a look back, that would be kind of weird.
Yeah, I do believe some of it should go to 2021 people.
So I don't know what that looks like, though.
The idea of putting a substantial amount of it into the loan fund, knowing that it'll recirculate eventually, I really like, because, we're seeing groundwater levels decline in the basin because we've had 3 years of drought. And this may be the new normal. I mean.
Oh, I thought I was going to take a canoe in this morning from
With-
yesterday's rain. I
with-
didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we get a couple of nice downbursts. That's great, but overall, we're still down for the year, the water year, and that comes on top of 2 years of below average precipitation and below average groundwater recharge. So, and I don't think we can count on average coming back. So this problem may very well not just not go away. We might the program in Neighbor Impact may continue to get the same number of requests that they have been, but it could even get worse.
Oh, but there's another scenario out there. I mean, if the climate is changing and the poles are melting and there's going to be more water, there's going to be more water in the atmosphere, we could be floating here in a couple of years too. So I don't know that I go down this doom and gloom path. I can't assume that it would go either way for sure.
Well, the fact that you do have 427,000 in the one fund for the wells, that seems good. You're saying most people are asking for 23,000, that's the average amount.
Running numbers, I can pin it down to where I'm talking to the person from, and I'll know.
Know how much they need?
It varies from 10 to 60.
Oh, I know, that's the thing. Some of them get real expensive.
But if that person needs 60, are they in a spot where they still qualified for the 80% AMI? If they've got a well that's, they've got that.
Okay, well, there's a lot of moving parts to it. For one, you not really know exactly how much it's going to be until they get started based on the geography. So that comes into play. We approve them with a buffer, with a contingency, but then once the drilling starts, then I've had to come back on numerous of times and go back to committee and ask for more money. And my most expensive well was out near Terrebonne, and it was $69,000. And I think the cheapest one was an additional 10 feet in the pine for $6,000. Everything else is in between with an average. Just from running the numbers in my production over the last fiscal year, that's what it comes out to, an average of 23,000.
Yeah, and right now we're down to about 327,000, not 427,000.
And also that.
Okay, well, that's what you just had said.
For everything.
In my notes.
427 over the last year. That's probably where you got the number from. We've spent 427,000 out of our preservation fund funding dry wells, as opposed to doing all the other projects that are out there that need to be addressed that we've put on the back burner.
And whatever predictions you have about our changing global climate, the fact is that we've seen a couple of decades of steady groundwater decline in the Deschutes Basin. And I don't expect that that's going to magically reverse itself this year or in the next couple of years. So we need to be prepared. What I was saying was I liked your idea of putting a larger amount into this loan program so that that money would recirculate back in future years as we see.
Then. Okay, so if we put 400 into the fund and the other went in and to grants for people, so that people that actually from last year got some kind of help, because I'm sure they've probably already taken care of the issue, they've paid it somehow.
Well, and maybe somebody hasn't either, though.
Right.
I mean, but it was
Well-
just that point in time, it was statewide news, state legislature allocates money, and now there's been this period of time, and I'd like to be able to work back a little bit to that.
But only take 10% out of each one of those instead of that 15, maybe, if you can work that out.
No, 10's fine. 10's more than adequate.
Okay, so 10 is fine for grant and for the other?
So you want to cut it off December 31st, 2021. So if I got my dry well replaced in January, February 2022, I'm not eligible for this?
We'll leave it open for a month or something so that people that did have a well last year can apply for the grant. Give them a little bit of time in order to get the news, be aware of it. And then if there's any funding left, then let it go to people for this year. But truly, we need to get more, hopefully more people can apply for that state funding, the 5.5. But I know how fast the state money goes, except we probably need the money on this side of the mountain in comparison to the other side.
As I say, I like the idea of $400,000 revolving loan fund. It'll be able to, replenish itself at some point, be able to be used regionally. I'm supportive of that. And then the Magic Grant Fund, which is fair and equitable as we can. I mean, that's the tricky part, right? Because somebody's going to raise their hand right away, real fast, and then the next person, if somebody doesn't get in on it and they're in that same scenario.
Maybe
could
we
be in a
can get
weird
a really
spot.
good press release out on it.
I mean, it's kind of what I'm dealing with right now, juggling, well, I've heard of this coming out of the state
I know.
right now, but here I am locally, right in front of you, and I have this loan I want to propose. So it's been a lot of moving parts in the last month especially, but the important thing is that these people have been addressed and have been getting their wells fixed, and we got that done for them. Now the state and the county levels are coming in and implementing their programs, and we're willing to pivot
Yep.
and make it happen. And part of that may be reimbursing Neighbor Impact for some of this, out of some of this funding for what we've done based on the scenario. Like, these people got word that now the money's available.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
are you
I,
gonna do for me, John?
I know.
Yeah,
Word's gonna get out.
Yeah.
Everyone's saying that to me.
well, I'll be curious how many of the people you made loans to, would be eligible to now get a little mini grant. I mean,
About 80%.
Of the 18, you funded
So-
18, so.
so that sounds like a great place for us to start in terms of marketing this grant
There
program.
goes that amount.
That's 36,000 out of, so there's still a lot of funding
Okay.
left. And then maybe those other 22, maybe they still could qualify for this.
Is that enough guidance, or is this leaving loose
Write
ends?
up an MOU and
Or they make too much money.
Yeah,
We're
we'll-
not-
We'll come back, we'll work with Neighbor Impact and bring back a draft MOU that lays out all the parameters.
Okay.
Make sure that it's consistent with the board direction.
Great.
One other.
Can we do it as soon as possible? Because I know people are really hurting.
Yeah.
I
One
feel
other
badly this has taken so long.
One other idea for marketing this program would be to go to that handful of well drilling companies and let them know that these funds are available, and you can bet if they want to keep those customers and get referrals, that they'll share that information
Well,
to
this is
people
a
they work
public
with.
meeting. I'm sure everybody in town's watching it right now.
Yeah.
Now, about 80% of the referrals for these dry wells come from the actual drillers. James
Oh, yeah.
Travis and I talk on a daily basis.
Yep.
Yeah, so you just recruit them to get the word out for us to their, their past customers. And
Great.
Quick question, in terms of the maximum amount on a grant, we heard the number 2,000 thrown out there. Is that consistent with the full board?
I think that's fair.
2,000 is a max for a grant.
I have
Or some kind of percentage, because I know, when water is in sand at 40 feet and in rock at 800 feet, there's a huge difference. So maybe a percentage of some sort. I'd be open to a percentage proposal. You wanted to keep it real simple, huh?
Percent up to 4,000?
Yeah, maybe.
I have no idea what would make sense.
I just know, yeah. Sorry.
Probably really nice for those people that have the 40,000 ones.
Well, that's
Right.
my point, yeah.
We do a percentage, like 10% up to.
Yeah, something, yeah,
4,000.
yeah.
If we go up too high, then there
Dan
is a
Emerson-
need.
Dan Emerson could find a curve for us.
But at the same time, we're also encouraging these people to still apply for the state, so.
Oh, yeah. No, this is the moment, yeah. Well, and success means this money's out the door, too. We're not debating the money for the next 6 months.
Well, truly, if they're applying for state funding, they need to have done it last week. Is it available? Do they know? Is there an application?
Deschutes, they have Jackson County rolled theirs out, another county that's not coming to mind has rolled out, and then we were the third identified county
Yeah.
over and above that 5 million. It said Deschutes County, parentheses, coming soon. That was all the way up to 2 days ago. Now, it's gone completely, and they just went back to the direct intake form for the 5.5 million, because nothing ever got accomplished with the Deschutes County piece. So it's very confusing, and I've been diving into it for the last 2 weeks, and I'm still somewhere.
So then the memo has this table for the different criteria. Are we agreeing to all that? So loan amount, $50,000 maximum? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, and we did all that. Okay, so the 80% AMI, 4.75%, 10% fees plus interest.
And we'd like to go up to 100% AMI in some situations to capture that 10% that don't qualify,
So
or 20%.
is that implied already, or do you
No,
want
he said
different
that.
guidance? Okay, that's fine.
He said it in his conversation.
Yep.
I
Good.
mean, I'm sure there are times when it is appropriate.
Yeah.
Great.
Great, thanks for your partnership.
Thank you. We'll come back with the draft MOU.
Always a pleasure to be in front of the.
Great to see you. Yeah, in
you for
person. We
joining
were
us.
on video many times last year, a couple times last year. Yes,
Such a lucky day.
thank you.
I'm sorry, that's Prineville and not Deschutes County, it's Crook County.
It's okay.
It's our neighbors. Okay, now we have special funding requests. And let's see, Laura, are you going to handle this? Or do-
You get me today. All right, thank you, Commissioners. Laura Skundrick, Administration. So this year, there are several external funding requests, and we've gathered those requests for you here today for your review, as well as providing you with a couple presentations from two of those organizations. So, as you can see in your packet materials, you have the requests in front of you. And then if you have any questions, we can start with that. Otherwise, we can get started with our first presentation.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. So first up, we will hear from Alfalfa Fire District. They are requesting $150,000 for the help with the construction of Station 901. And we have Chief LaValle here with us to present. Yes.
Thank you, Chief, for joining us. We just heard about your wells.
Well, in Alfalfa, we're 810 plus. So
800 to 1,000?
well, most of the quotes that I've gotten in the last couple of weeks for wells out there, they're 800 minimum. So, and we're looking at anywhere between $40,000 to $50,000 to drill those, and that's without the pump. You add about another $7,000 to $10,000 with the pump, and that's, you know, the previous folks talked about, you know, variances and that. Well, when they start punching wells, if you guys are familiar with those, if they come up short and they need more concrete or more sleeves, and that obviously goes above and beyond what, you know, they had put in their quotes for anybody to drill a well. So really what we're asking for, and I'm not sure if you guys all have the proposal in front of you. Really what we're asking for is stuff in our fiscal year. We get about $147,000 to $150,000 in tax revenue. We have about a $50,000 station payment we pay every year. Being probably one of the newest fire districts in the state, fiscally, these are just some projects that we couldn't finish. Our strategic plan laid out these projects. They were just stuff that we just could not afford at the time. So what we're asking for is help from Deschutes County to help fund these projects. I've gone out, I've applied with the state, I've applied for federal grants, I've applied for pretty much every grant that you could apply for to fund these projects with no, we've either been denied or we went out to community development block grants and told because we share the same 01 zip code with Bend, told that our median household income was above and beyond what we could qualify for to get these grants. We're working with the state of Oregon to go out to do separate studies about the median income in Alfalfa, but right now we don't qualify for any of those funds.
I know that is in Terrebonne, too. That Terrebonne's income is like 66,000 or something, and people that live in Terrebonne are going, like, they don't, yeah. I know, what do you do then? You have to really, in order to get that funding.
So really what we're asking for is funds to obviously drill a well. The well would be the first and foremost thing for us to provide water for sustainable operations at our fire station. Right now, matter of fact, I just filled up this morning our 1,000-gallon cistern. Moving into summer, we have more people that inhabit the station for staffing, so we go through more water in the summer months. So what we'd like to do is drill a well to be able to have operations year-round without having to rely on, our wells or our cistern being filled up. The second would be a generator for external operations when the power goes out. We have a beautiful substation in Alfalfa that has been in need of repairs for several years, as far as from what I understand. That went out 5 times last year. Most of the folks that live in Alfalfa said it's probably gone out once or twice in the last 10 years. When we do that, when the power goes out at the fire station, we basically leave a man behind to manually close the doors and to make sure that if anybody comes to the station, that the station is still staffed. And then they have to manually roll the doors back up for us when we come back from a call. So the second, what we'd like to do is install the generator. Third, what we'd be asking for is funds to pave around the station. The volunteers and the department's done as much as we could to put up paving. The volunteers and myself have opened our wallets and our checkbooks as much as we possibly can. We've put a lot of money into that station, a lot of work. Most of the offices and stuff that we have existing in the fire station were built and funded by the fires themselves. Roughly about $26,000 to $27,000 came out of the firefighters' own pockets to help with completing what we have for the fire station to get that up and running and to get our certificate of occupancy. So what we'd like to do is finish paving around the station. If you've ever seen the fire station out there in Alfalfa, we're surrounded by agricultural fields.
We were there for the raid, remember the 49? All 3 of us were there.
Okay, I don't know if I was there at that point.
Okay.
I took over for the first chief they had there, so I'm not sure if I was probably there to.
It was the parking lot was full.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't there then, but.
Okay.
But we get the nice weeds that blow in, and without having pavement, literally, just before I came here, I was out weeding around the station to try to knock down a lot of the cheatgrass and tumbleweed. So what we're asking for is those funds to help, at least, it probably won't pave all of it, but at least get a large portion of the station around there paved. The paving poses a big issue for us too, also because we send our firefighters out of the district to train, only because the fire hose that we purchase is expensive. When you go dragging it across gravel all the time, and we train 2 to 3 times a week. So when we drag that hose across gravel, it ends up blowing holes in the hose, and we end up spending more money to replace fire hose. So, that's kind of it in a nutshell, really, unless you guys have any questions.
Sounds like that adds up to more than $150,000.
So, yeah, with the cost of fuel increases and stuff, when we first made this ask, then, I'm not going to get into politics, but we all know how the economy's gone. So the cost of everything has gone up substantially. What we're still asking for is the $150,000, and we'll make that work with what we get. If we drill the well, and we put in the generator, whatever's left, we'll use to pave, but we wanted to keep it within that $150,000, so we're not coming back and asking you guys for more money. We wanted this to be a one-time ask of the county, and only because we have exhausted every other option to this point.
Could you explain a little bit about your whole water system? So you wells, cistern, fire trucks that need to be filled.
So right now there is no well. So what we have is a 1,000-gallon cistern.
Mm-hmm.
We have agreements with the water district, with COID, and also with Avion to be able to fill up out of their hydrants. Basically, in essence, when we have to fill up one of our engines or one of our tenders, we run from our fire station down to Brasada, fill up from a fire hydrant, and come back. So if there's any type of fire operations, the water system in Alfalfa, that's a whole nother separate the infrastructure conversation, but there is no hydrants in Alfalfa. So when we need water, we have to go get it, haul it back. The water that's put into the cistern is mainly used for flushing toilets, for just general water needs. We don't wash any of our engines with that water. Basically, if we want to wash an engine, we pull one of our pieces of equipment out, we pull a hose off, we wash our engines, we wipe them down, and we put them back in, and then we run rigs back down to the hydrants to fill them back up.
So there is a community water system in Alfalfa, but you're not connected to it, or there's not a community. Okay.
We're predominantly wells and cisterns out in Alfalfa.
Right.
So the only real water supply is down at the store, and that's more of a commercial operation for people to haul water to their cisterns.
So did you say you had to go to the hydrants in Prasada then? Okay. How far away is that?
It's about 7.5 miles from the station.
Okay.
You could use the alfalfa store water, it's just too expensive, is that?
We
the-
used to, and the gentleman that owns the store is one of my firefighters, so
Yeah.
we used to be able to use that. Most time, if there's an emergency, it takes too long. It's actually quicker for us to
flow.
run to the hydrant.
Yep, got it.
And get the water versus sitting there underneath their pump system to try to fill things up.
Well, we're going to be in this situation 3 times today with these requests, and these are just things that haven't fit for ARPA, and, you know, these are good community things, but now it's up to us to figure out where we're going to go.
Could I also go back to, so you said you're trying to kind of parse your component of the 97701 zip code off to demonstrate the federal grant program that I immediately think of is the USDA Rural Development Community Facilities Program, but I can see how
So we've already
being,
applied for that.
yeah, being lumped in with that, with the overall zip code, it would be a problem. So when will that study be completed?
So when we talked to OSU, they told us probably sometime after the first of the year, they could get started on it, and then it probably wouldn't be completed till probably the end of fiscal year 23 or 24.
And OSU is doing it?
That's one of the people we reached out to as far as the studies are concerned.
Okay, well, we should get a special deal and have Terrebonne have the same thing done, because they've got the same problem. Yeah, I know, it's like, because we looked in for like a Department of Agricultural loan, and they looked them up, and they were, oh no, they're they have too high of an income average, just like what you're saying.
We actually held a meeting with the USDA and the Community Development Block Grant people at the same time, and it kind of battled back and forth about who could possibly fund that, and both of them came back with the same response. It was more because we're in that 97701 zip code that we just don't qualify for that. Unless we could do an income study, and even then, once the income study is done, if they do come back with the study and state that here's our average median income and it's well below what the 01 zip code is, then you're still in a lottery to try to qualify for those funds.
You're talking about USDA or whoever loans,
Community
correct?
Development Block Grant, yes, sir.
A block grant.
So even with the study, basically, they said if you can provide us with a study that says that the median household income in alfalfa is lower than the 97701, we can process a grant, but it doesn't necessarily even guarantee that you'll even get it.
I mean, my impression is that that community facilities loan and grant program got a piece of the infrastructure, the federal infrastructure bill that just passed. So, I mean, they're, it'll take as long as it takes for you to get that income study. But I mean, once you did, if the numbers look good, then I would think that you'd be able to secure some of that funding. But it's end of fiscal year 2023. It's not super helpful right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I can imagine the grass is growing out in alfalfa, and then it's going to get dry.
It's a weekly basis for us for me to weed out. I'm the only paid person out there, so I'm the chief, the assistant chief, the maintenance guy, the facilitator, the lawnmower, and everything else. So yes, it's a weekly deal, and then we're trying to keep that down. So yes, when it does dry out, that we at least have some sort of defensible space around our station.
Well, no, I was just thinking about the whole community, though, and, if it does stop raining, yes, the grass truly, it grows amazing with rainwater. So it's going to be a lot of grass out there that you're going to be responsible for.
So the pressurized water at Brasada, I mean, could you replicate that kind of pressure and those kinds of hose fittings with a portable pump and some hoses of some kind, I don't know exactly what the intake would look like, but
To answer your question, no. With some pumps that we have, we can fill engines out of the canal. We've worked with COID to be able to use that water during fire suppression. It's not something that we can use for training or anything else. And even then, trying to find a suitable spot to get those engines close enough to those sandy banks. What we try to do is stay away from those because obviously dumping one of our fire engines into a bank isn't good for anybody.
Yep.
We've looked at try to duplicate, with the well to get a pressure, but the cost of the well and the pump would put us somewhere in the neighborhood of about $225,000. Because basically what we do is we put in the well and the pump, and then we have to have a 10,000 gallon storage tank to be able to replicate those pressures.
Okay. So when you get your own, when you're talking about drilling a well, you're still not you're not going to be able to fill your fire trucks from that well. You'll still be going to Brasada regardless. Okay. One of my other questions, reading your report, was there was a statement that you know that a bond or a levy would not pass at this time. I mean, I was curious how you know that, or
It's a pretty small community. We've done, just some Survey Monkey type stuff. We've gone out, we've talked to community members, myself as well as the firefighters and the board. Like I said, one of my firefighters owns a store there. So we're a relatively small community, so there's a lot of input into the station. Given that we're so new, and we've assessed the maximum tax amount that we probably could right off the bat, they won't support it. They've literally probably 65 to 70% of the folks that I've talked to absolutely said that they would vote it down. So without actually putting it on, on the ballot, and obviously that takes, finances out of our budget to be able to put that on the ballot. What the board isn't willing to do right now is to try to put that on the ballot knowing that it's most likely going to fail. You look at Cloverdale for even staffing, and staffing is a huge piece for fire departments everywhere. And Cloverdale's first attempt at that failed, pretty miserably, so.
70%, yes.
So when you take a fire department that's only about 5 years old, and then go out and say, hey, we've hit you guys with a $1.75 per thousand tax rate, which is a maximum amount we can assess in Oregon. Now we want, X amount of dollars more. So when you look at the dollar figures on that, at $1.75 per thousand, we get about $145,000 to $150,000 a year. To really make that work, we're going back out for either another $1 or $1.50 per thousand to really make those numbers even, feasible for us to finish projects or even staff people right now. So the community just isn't willing to pay that kind of money out there, given also the fact that the median household income out there isn't that great.
You've made a very compelling case for the needs. It's just when parts of the county, when communities within the county, say that they need things, but they don't demonstrate that they feel the need, in a willingness to, to fund it themselves as taxpayers. It just makes it hard to, it makes it hard to,
And I understand.
it makes it hard to understand that it's really urgent.
And rather, like I said, and I've tried to keep it from going back to the taxpayers. I've tried to apply for every grant that you possibly could from both state, local, and federal funds. I literally spend probably at least, if you talk to the state fire marshal's office, you can tell them that when they put out grants, I guarantee you that Alfalfa Fire District is probably their number. I literally pulled off the side of the road to fill out a grant when they came out with their staffing for the summer, summer grants for summer help. We just got approved for that today. So that's going to put 3 more full-time people on my station over the summer.
Well, that's fabulous. That's excellent news.
So it's when I say that I've exhausted every option I possibly could outside of going back and asking for more money from the taxpayers. I get where you're coming from. It's just hard for us, not only as a fire station, but as a board, to go back to taxpayers so soon and say, hey, it's been 5 years, we want more money from you. So there's not a lot of growth in Alfalfa. Like I said, most of the homes, we're getting a few new houses every year, but there's only a handful of lots left. And then unless Deschutes County changes any type of zoning, we're going to be looking at being stuffed with what we have. So
Yeah, and I mean, and, you know, being an agricultural community, I mean, most of the property is on, you know, they have EFU tax deferral, so it's not a, you know, it's not a huge tax generation base either for you or for the county. Yeah.
So where would the funding come from, Dan? Do you?
It's not eligible for
ARPA.
either the lottery or ARPA based on the proposal that I've seen. It would come from the general fund. Right now, you know, our fiscal year '23, we're projecting to have about 1.98 million in the general fund capital reserve, so it'll be 150,000 from that currently. And we do have the TRT funds to fund our capital debt in fiscal year '23, so it's something we could do, but it's definitely a decision.
From my understanding, video lottery dollars are pretty much the most flexible dollars we have for economic development purposes, stabilizing people and investing in the economy. I mean, my point is, I don't think, from what I've learned over the years, I don't think there's a hard limit for these video lottery dollars there. AOC did a kind of a statewide survey, and these video lottery dollars are used for all kinds of stuff. So I don't know, not to debate you with it, but I'm just thinking.
Sure, I mean, we'd be happy to take a look at it
Yeah.
and look at that again. I think, you know, there has to be some kind of economic development there. It's hard to show that with a kind of a well and basic capital expenditures, that it's, you know, economic development for the community. But certainly there's broad uses there, and we'd be happy to work with the chief if potentially that's something.
So, Chief, I mean, it's a need. I'm not real excited about pulling out the checkbook for this at this point in time. You know, maybe we need to have a community bake sale, which is always kind of the joke about how do you create funds for something like this. You know, the general fund of Deschutes County, we could have asks like this all over the place. Is this the right thing to be doing? And it wouldn't be wrong to do it. It'd be exciting to do it, but I don't know. I don't feel comfortable. We just did our budget this year, and you know, they've got huge capital steps coming for Deschutes County proper. Yeah, so I'm just trying to get some words out for my other commissioners to hear.
Yeah. No, what makes this especially hard is just knowing the size of the capital project costs we're going to have in the next few years for the county between a courthouse expansion, North County, development of a North County campus that's going to house expanded health services and 911 backup and a whole bunch of other things, and a parole and probation building expansion. We're looking at taking on a pretty substantial amount of debt for the county just in starting next year. So to kind of, we would be pulling $150,000 out of what little capital reserve we have and basically tacking that onto what we're going to be borrowing.
I guess okay, so I'm the only one that I really do support this, because I just think if we have the wind from the northeast and you guys get a fire over there, and I remember the guy on the CAT a couple years ago in Wasco County that burned up because he couldn't get out of the fire, and if we've got all this grass growing now. Yeah, that was horrible. And I'm from Morrow County, and they've had 27,000 acres burned going through the wheat fields. And I just drove all the way over to Idaho the other day, and, you see all that land, and if the wind is blowing, we truly need you guys to be able to help stop it. So I guess I truly look at this differently as being a person who grew up with fires and had a fire go around my house once. When I asked to expand fire-free days, and they said it was going to cost $500,000, and I go, what does one fire in Deschutes County cost? Yes. Yeah, so I truly believe that there might be some capital projects that we could kind of hold back on for a moment, but prevention truly, tomorrow, if, in September will be too late if we're not paying attention.
Yes, ma'am. And I feel like, there, like Commissioner DeBowen said, there could be a lot of ask, outside of this. I think that, the fire service in general, we give a lot and don't ask a lot. I think especially for a newer fire district that, was voted in because there was a need out in that area. We put our heart and souls into this building. And like I said, we've come to the county commissioners as a last ditch effort to try to fund these projects. It wasn't that we tried to, we exhausted every option we possibly could. And I don't believe that $150,000 out of $1.89 million is a huge ask. It's something that I understand from what you're talking about is we've got prisons that are going to get money. We've got, courthouses that are going to get money. But what I'm hearing is Sun River is going to get a huge chunk of money for their fire department and their police district. But what we're saying is we can't get $150,000 for just some improvements to our building that will help our operations in the long term.
See, that's coming from TRT, Dan, and really this has a different flavor, and it can't come out of TRT.
Well, we just moved our unallocated TRT to the capital reserve fund and Fund 60 for future capital needs of the county. We do, as I presented in the finance meeting earlier, we will likely have another 700,000 or so that would flow into that TRT reserve this year over budgeted. But right now we just have $4 million there to continue to pay off those Sun River payments in the future.
I mean, assuming that this income study delivers you the numbers that you think you're going to get, that will open up access to all sorts of funding in 14 months, 13 months. So
Potentially open up funding.
well, if the income numbers are what you are anticipating them to be, it will open up funding opportunities.
Can you guarantee me that, though?
Well, I can't guarantee it to you because you can't guarantee me what the income numbers are going to be. I mean, there are very large parts of rural Deschutes County where the AMI is actually quite high. So I don't have a good enough feel for, I don't have a good enough feel for how those numbers will shake out in the alfalfa area. But if you're, I hear you expressing a belief that they're going to come in pretty low, and if they are that low, then I do think that you have a very good chance of securing state or federal funding. And what I'm trying to figure out is whether there's a way that we could essentially float you some funds for the next year to bridge to that opportunity, rather than making an outright grant, because it is, adding $150,000 more to the debt that we have to take, it does make a difference. And we had a raging debate at our last budget, at our budget hearings 2 weeks ago about whether we needed to raise the assessed property tax rates for the county this year as opposed to next year, which we are pretty certainly going to have to do next year. So these are not, this is not an easy, this is not an easy thing to choose to do.
Sure. And when you discussed, or when you mentioned, floating capital, now say those assessments come back and they're higher than what we anticipate and we don't qualify for loans, and where does that put us?
So, I mean, yeah, there's a whole flip side to this.
Then I think you should go back to your taxpayers and ask them to.
We probably shouldn't be yearning for documenting low incomes in an area. We should be yearning for creating a higher tide and rising incomes and more economic activity. So, let's make the future bright here. You mentioned with Deschutes County zoning for land use, it's a state system that maybe has run to ground in some areas, and we need to have a discussion about it at the state level. And not that we want to go, make a bunch of density out in alfalfa, but the discussion isn't even ours. It's a state level discussion. We have no opportunity to say, oh, by the way, we want to subdivide somebody's parcels out there. It just doesn't happen. So the density function isn't even available. So, there's a lot of moving parts here. Yeah, I'm not interested in debating anymore, but I would love to talk to the board a little bit about this. What's the future? I want to make sure you have a ready and responsive crew for if there's a fire event. So, I mean, I am not against that. It sounds like you keep the tanks full, and yes, you don't have running water, or you do have some running water, but you don't have a well to fill it back up. Thank you very much today.
Commissioners, I'll just offer one perspective, if I may, just briefly.
Please.
And that is, as I look at the properties, but a good section of it is zoned RR10. As I look through a lot of the properties, most of them are 4 acres or about 4 acres or larger, meaning most of these properties will be eligible for rural accessory dwelling units when those come online. So that will increase the tax base if some property owners choose to build additional dwelling units. So that is one
tax
element
base
that
will
could
go
have
up.
an impact.
And I can tell you, Nick, that if you're looking at an aerial map of alfalfa,
Yeah.
most of those lots, those people can't afford to build any ADUs.
Okay.
Like I said, I have problems with defensible space. We've worked as a community with firefighters to try to get people to lessen, the stuff they have around their houses. If you look at some of those houses, there's a couple of them that look like wrecking yards. They're 4 acres of nothing but vehicles and broke down fifth wheel trailers and, everything else. I mean, if there is potentially, like, Commissioner Adair said, if there's a fire that blows through there, it's going to be catastrophic. So, it's going to be, what's the rural community of alfalfa really worth? If a fire blows through there off of BLM and takes out the whole community, it's, we're essentially starting from scratch. So, like I said, I appreciate you guys' time, and I won't take up any more of it. I guess we'll go out and try to ask our constituents for more tax money, and if that doesn't work, I'll start digging next week.
You mean digging?
We'll dig it by hand.
Yep.
800, that's a bit much. Yeah.
Well, and so, I mean, the vote for the district was, sponsored. I supported the district and the vote and advocated for it and everything too. So there's a little bit of history here also. So there is no hard feelings. It's just an awkward time to pull out the checkbook for capital like this. And I mean, I think of the parking lot at the senior center in La Pine. I mean, they're asking for money just like this. They want $90,000 and they keep asking. And it's just that awkward spot where if we just keep writing checks to everybody, we're not being fiscally responsible to Deschutes County's, total funds.
Okay. Well,
I mean, and I'm still open to this idea, like if there's a way to float funds now, essentially to offer low interest financing, from the county, not an outright grant, but.
But they have to have a way to pay it back.
what's that?
You have to have a way to pay it back, and it sounds like you're already maxed on your budget.
The problem is like, I said, and the board has gone out and we've looked for loans. Really what it is, the interest rates are climbing, so depending on what the interest rate that you guys would want asked back, I mean, obviously, there's wiggle room in there to make payments on a loan, but it isn't $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. I mean, I've almost even considered giving up my salary to fund these projects, and just work there for free.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, this is, in my mind, would be placeholder money till this state or federal funding comes. So, I mean, I wouldn't, it's conceivably something that, could be offered on a very low or zero interest, basis, because money that we have, the revolving funds that we have that, we don't need right now, but we'll need next year. We're not earning a huge amount of, we're not getting a huge yield on that funding anyway.
And that's something that I think that even my board, I have a board meeting on Wednesday, I think that they would be open to. Like I said, there, even we've looked at refinancing our building, looking at some other options to help fund these projects. It's just with the way that we're sitting at like a 1.28% interest rate. So when we took out the loan for our building, we got a super low interest rate.
Right.
So in order for us to refinance, you're looking at 3 to 4%, which over the next 20 years, just kind of give you a background, that loan that we pulled out for that building is on a 12-year loan. So it's really, we're making huge payments for a short amount of time. I wasn't part of that loan process. I questioned that from the day I came in and took over as chief, why we went for such a short amount and didn't go over longer. That wasn't my decision to make at the time, but I would, if the commissioners would consider doing something to where when we pulled the reports from OSU or some other funding sources, that maybe we could pay that back over a certain amount of time. Really what we're looking at is, I've had several, times where I've had folks in there, last winter it was cold. We had people in there that were trying to stay warm. They're living in fifth wheel trailers in alfalfa. They go to flush the toilet and there's nothing. So I've got to go in, I've got to get into one of my water tenders with a 5-gallon bucket and, do it the way we did in 1810, and we put water in the back of the toilet and, flush the toilet, and then we have to wait for somebody to deliver us water. So, we've looked at even certifying one of our water tenders to get it to where we could haul water for ourselves, but it's just, the cost is too great.
And what year are you in that 12-year loan term?
We're 10 years left.
Oh,
You don't want to lose that 1.2% interest rate.
And that's the reason why we've looked at a couple of options and really, we've gone back to the same bank to see if we could, because of the equity in the building now, if we could finance over a longer rate, and the interest rate they've come back with it's just not that 1.2%. So,
that's very special.
yes.
Yeah.
So we like to hang on to that, but like I said, I've even considered foregoing my salary and just working for free just to help kind of bridge the gap to get some of these things done. That's how important that is to me and to my fire department.
Whoa.
Well, if there's essentially some way that we can, at the end of 10 years, you won't have to dedicate, any component of your assessment, your annual assessment collections to debt service. So if there are creative ways we could work with that and to provide some kind of like short-term assistance now and have receive repayment, at the end of your 12-year loan term, I would also be open to looking at creative ways to work at that. Sure. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm sure there's financial minds that would have some ideas. I mean, theoretically, if it would be great to have some people who think about finance stuff kind of play with this a little bit and think about how a county that has that operates at a significant scale in terms of budget and has long-term stability, but really we're not in a great position now to just be granting out big blocks of funds for capital projects. How we could help. So.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys' time. I don't want to take up any more of it, but I appreciate you guys hearing it and listening to me. And so maybe if we can't fund it in a couple of years, we come back and try again. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Fire Chief LaValle.
All right. If the board would like, we can continue with our second presentation. We will hear from the Bend Chamber of Commerce, and we have the Bend Chamber CEO, Katie Brooks, here with us. And they have a slideshow for you.
This is Sarah Odendahl. She does government relations for the Bend Chamber. Thanks for having us today, Commission.
Thank you for coming.
Chair Adair and Commissioners, we have a brief presentation to provide to you on our initiative. We are applying for lottery for economic development funds to help us try and figure out, I think, what's probably undermining our number one issue in economic stability and growth in Bend, and that's housing. And really employers' ability to attract and retain the workforce and actually live somewhere in Central Oregon, hopefully Bend or the close environs of somewhere in Deschutes County. So we began our effort. Can Can I forward my own
Yes.
slides? Awesome. And how I do that is,
Without a mouse. We know that.
yeah, I'm a professional. So we took this initiative on. As you know, we've come before you with our last initiative, which was establishing more childcare within Deschutes County, actually within the Tri-County area. And you guys have been just awesome about supporting these efforts. And our next initiative is mid-market workforce housing. Now, this is a multi-year initiative that we have started, and we suppose, I don't know how long it's going to take to fix, but it's really time for solutions. And what we're trying to do is on several fronts. First of all, we began all of this, and we presented last fall to you our poll on how folks are thinking about whether or not we have a housing crisis. That was the big duh moment of the day. But it was also, what do they think, especially within the confines of Bend, that we should be doing about it? They got back to us with, well, I guess we're supportive of density. We like it more when it's done in a thoughtful way. We are really worried about rents, and also I think to the tune of 68%, as well as rising housing prices. So we plan on doing another poll this coming fall. This time we'll probably focus on employers, and I'll tell you about that in just a minute. Excuse me. Just last week, we launched a new website, kind of a how-to build an ADU accessory dwelling unit on your property. It's mostly focused on what does the permitting process look like? How do you find financing? What should you expect for income? How do you really assess and take care of this asset that you've added to your property over time? And who can help you design and build something, and what does that actually look like? We're waiting for the county to have more clear guidelines on where you can put ADUs on outside Bend land. We'd love to include a template or a step-by-step permitting process that's suited precisely to Deschutes County as well. We partnered with the city of Bend to make that happen. And they even went as far as to put a template together and a step-by-step process so that property owners might get through that process a little bit more efficiently.
I thought it was great. Katie, I saw it on the news, and I thought, oh, that is so good, because that's what we want. We want people to know when you tell them we have like 7,800 properties already that could be done in the county, perhaps maybe not quite so many in Lapine because of the water level, but still, yeah, I love what you guys did last week.
Yep, and we would love to keep doing that. We've already received a lot of hits on that website, and a lot of folks that are interested in providing resources. So really great stuff. And the other, that was a Leadership Bend project, by the way. It's a program of the Bend Chamber. And they also did another project working on water conservation with large water users, including parks, brewery, that sort of thing, on how to monitor water use and save. But moving on, social media program, we started that this fall. It has several components to it. I'll get to that in a minute. Mid-market housing expert. This is the Housing Accelerator. This is somebody whose expertise lies in understanding nationally what is working and what is not working as far as legislation and pilot projects to bring mid-market housing online. And what I mean by mid-market is AMI around 80 to 150%. This is households that used to be able to afford a place. So we're talking about renting, but we're also talking about home ownership eventually as well. And these are folks that have been butted out of the market because the amount that property and home ownership has increased has exponentially outgrown the amount of wage increases. And we all know that's going on. We've also put together a collaborative workforce housing effort that includes COBA, CORE, developers, investors, bankers, realtors, all sorts of folks in the area who all have their own ideas for legislation, and I've seen projects include some developers who are doing some really unique pilot projects out in the primarily Deschutes County area and Bend area. And then also connecting employers, both large and small, with landowners and developers and investors in figuring out how to actually put things in the ground, housing projects in the ground, be they rental or deed restricted, et cetera. So wanted to take just a minute to get into the weeds a bit with what we're talking about with the policy focus. As I said, we're not going after affordable capital A housing efforts and policies. That's really already robust, clearly underfunded. We need more. I'm not saying we don't. But there are folks who know that world intimately well, and they're pursuing it. We're still talking about mid-market, as I mentioned. So there's a couple of things that we're looking at doing with a overall omnibus approach to mid-market housing, if you will. It's going to include several pieces, and I have Sarah here to go over that with me in more detail if you'd like. So one of the tactics we want to pursue is raising the minimum, the household average monthly income, AMI levels, up to 150%. We take 120. But when you look for qualifying assistance for affordable housing, they usually start at anything below 80%, but it's usually around the 40 to 80% pocket in which most of those loans and grants are awarded. We're saying that there is a huge population. We need to increase the pool of money, but there's a huge population that's being underserved simply because they're earning more money that has nothing to do with their ability to actually afford a place to live. We're also advocating to modify middle income tax exemption standards to include home ownership. Right now, mid-market tax exemptions, especially within the city of Bend and elsewhere, really focus on rentals, and we're wanting to include home ownership as well. Workforce housing deed restrictions, adding more to that, and including more public lands, continuing to support ADU, substantial completion, and other pending legislation that we know didn't pass in the 2022 session. And we know COBA and CORA and other organizations statewide are bringing back to the legislature and hooking our wagons with Oregon League of Cities and Counties to figure out how we take another swat at that. And innovative infrastructure funding, PUDs, LIDs, limited districts, as well as other methodology of being innovative and figuring out how do we lower the cost of actually putting in infrastructure so we can add housing at a lower price point. What am I missing, Sarah?
That was a great recap. I would just say for a deeper dive, and happy to answer any questions, one of the handouts I gave is a summary of our workshop that we hosted in April. We had about 35 to 40 leaders from all the different sectors that Katie mentioned participate, and so kind of bulked all of the different policy conversations for the day into these 5 key areas, of which we have various kind of pathways forward. The first of which, number 1, middle income workforce housing expansion. This is the kind of omnibus legislative approach that Katie mentioned.
Okay. Any questions on that? Right. Just briefly touching on the social media program, the end goal of this program is to educate folks in Deschutes County, Redmond, Bend, that who we're talking about is the essential workforce. We're talking about teachers and firefighters and the folks who actually make up that middle class, mid-market niche that we cannot survive without. And that we need to be creative. We need to, within the borders of Bend, look at more ways of being creative with density and welcoming these folks and making sure that they can live in the same place where they work. And it's also a tool we're using to connect businesses with people who want to build housing and invest in housing to actually get things in the ground. There are a couple of projects that are in the conversation stage that actually originated based off of some of our social media conversations we've had. And then to promote key policy change that helps support mid-market housing. We're also engaging employers. We do that with the Housing Accelerator. His name is Alex Joyce, and he is with Cascadia Partners LLC. They're out of Portland and Seattle. He is an expert on middle market housing. He's the one conducting our research, putting policies together, and really also pulling together a lot of folks who have done projects nationally, know how to finance it, know how to build it, and know how to incorporate employer participation. We've also used it to engage, also tried to engage employers with each other, with developers, property managers, investors, and as I said, putting pilot projects in the ground. I can give you some examples if you're interested. Because we feel like employers are the ones, aside from their employees, most keenly feeling this impact, and that there are some original creative ways that they can get involved in actually solving the problem for themselves. So this is a snapshot of funding. We've raised almost $70,000 so far, private sector dollars, trying to get us up and running. The hard costs that we have taken on is consulting fees. We do have some key staff support, which we've been supporting. We've also added the ADU website development, annual survey hard costs, lobbying and advocacy support, events, workshops, social media. So the total is around $133,000 to put this project together on an annual basis. We're planning on raising private funds and sponsorships as we go through. And the request to County Commission is for $50,000 to go toward this. We plan on spreading that out, at least for the first 2 years. This is something we're perpetuating through donations to our 501c3 through private sector as much as possible. And as we bring more employers online, that is how we propose to fund it for a 3-year time period. So what we really want to do is figure out something that has teeth to it, where we can actually see some things go into the ground, some policies that help make that happen, along with really monitoring our progress over time and taking good data to measure our success. So that's my presentation. Do you have any questions?
I would like to hear about pilot project examples. You mentioned you had some examples to share if we were interested.
There are several examples. I've been working as a mediator between St. Charles and several developers and investors and property managers to look at different ways of using other people's money and hospital property to build housing and childcare over time, and having somebody else management. One of the things you find from employers, both large and small, is even if they're willing to look at donating their land as an asset toward the end result, or if they want to be an investor, nobody wants to manage the property after it's been built. So I looked nationwide and found a couple of folks, as did Alex Joyce, with different organizations who specialize in mid-market employer-backed housing and managing it over time, identifying investors, working with local and national developers who actually know how to build or retrofit existing facilities. I've worked with 2 or 3 different employers in town who are actually interested in pooling money on small lots that look like maybe 30 to 40 units per lot for rental purposes to divide up among their employees. They don't want to manage it either. There's another property near Pilot Butte that is a equity share property that is based on AMI 100%. So you're looking at in Bend and Redmond, I think that's around 80,000 average household income for market priced housing that you commit to 3 to 5 years. At the end of that term, you get what's called a rent rebate, which is basically an equity share check that goes toward a down payment for your own home. And it's backed by a nonprofit. So that project is in the works. It's in its permitting application phase right now and is moving forward. So those are a few examples. And there are many others with really great organizations like CORE and, Habitat for Humanity, who are really putting in mid-market housing, unaffiliated with AMI, with deed-restricted properties, where the deed of the land stays with a land trust, and you buy the house on top of it, and that perpetuates over time over different ownerships. That keeps the housing at a price point that's accessible to folks who make a middle market income, because you don't own the land over it, but you have the use of the land and you own the physical property on the top of it. And that's another thing that a couple of other builders have been looking at, and I know that the Ben LaPine School District is considering this. I know the Stevens Road property and several others. So there's a mosh pit, if you will, of different ideas that are out there. And frankly, there isn't one that's going to work by itself. It'll take a whole bunch of these. And I think we're in the phase of innovation and of actually stealing great ideas from other people more than anything else and trying to implement them. I'm trying to be the conduit of figuring out where that's happening, what legislative pieces bind to them to make them more feasible, and how do we get the right players here to make them happen.
So Katie, do you know how many ADUs were actually built in Bend last year in 2021?
I don't.
I mean, I'm just wondering, you did this fabulous website. I was really excited about it for the county, for all of our amazing opportunities. But how many ADUs have actually been built in Bend in maybe like the last so many years? Is this a market that it's already been tapped out? Everybody that would even think about doing it, they've done it. Of course, we have donated to Habitat and CORE. They're at the top of the list.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, they do great jobs, and they make a difference. Great for families, great for people that want to work. So I just was wondering if we could get some kind of okay, this is what Ben has done. They've done 500 a year, and, it's still going strong. Is it already done?
Yeah, I would argue it's in the hundreds a year, and a lot of that's new build, a lot of the new properties that are being put in place. We did a news conference from one of the Leadership Bend project people who's building an ADU on our property. We, on Friday afternoon, mailed 4,000 cards to property owners that do not have ADUs.
Oh, great.
On there.
Fabulous.
Who we know qualify. It was a direct mail program that we paid for through the chamber.
Oh, thank you for doing that. I think that's really smart, because we have like 2,000 lots that don't have a single-family resident on them yet, but they could actually build an ADU and the single-family residence, which I think is pretty amazing. Please, realtors, please advertise it that way.
Yeah, and Chair, we could do that as well with county properties. Once we establish kind of the process that you folks want to go through, we can do a direct mail to the folks within the county that would also qualify to at some point.
But there were 4,000 in the city of Bend then?
Yes.
Was it Redmond too, or just Bend?
Bend.
Just Bend. Okay. Well, that's a really outstanding opportunity.
Some quick Google searching, because the power of the internet while we're here.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
702 ADU applications have been approved since 2001, with just over 500 since the city eased the restrictions in 2016. So I would certainly fact check that, because that just was the first data point that came up, but just kind of gives you a global perspective.
782 since 2001?
702
Okay.
approvals.
Approvals, okay.
I mean, since we're talking about ADUs, I would love to actually share a little bit of my experience, my own personal experience, because I think it points to where some of the bottlenecks are going to be when the permitting process was streamlined in 2017, 2016. I started the process of exploring building an ADU, and permitting is not easy. Finding a contractor is not easy, but really what I would anticipate is going to be the major bottleneck for a lot of homeowners, a lot of property owners, is financing based on your expectations about rental payback. Because, you know, the ADU that I basically built a 650 square foot unit on top of my garage. And I have a amazing renter who's, you know, a healthcare professional, missing middle, you know, it's exactly what we're talking about. But that project isn't going to pay itself back for years. So while helping people understand that they can do this, helping them understand what the pathway is going to look like, are all really important things. There are a lot of other ways you could invest your money with a greater return on investment than building an ADU. And so I would anticipate, until we change that equation, that we will probably see people, the people who will be highly motivated to do this will be the people who have the kid that they want to, you know, come home from college and you know, live not in their house but nearby because they want to provide them a place to live, or the aging parent. You know, unless there's a person that you are thinking about, like, oh, I really want to create housing for this person, thousands of people aren't just going to jump on the bandwagon because it's not the greatest financial investment, and you have to feel a passion for, you know, contributing to, you know, to the housing supply in your community, and in a particular way. So you know, this to me points to the need for in some of the research I've done on you know, mountain destination communities across the West, they're actually helping with financing for ADU construction, because these communities understand how badly they need those units of housing. So at some point along the way in the discussions of ADUs within the city, I hope we'll be talking about that. And and thinking about my own experience, I hope that as we look towards the implementation of SB 391, we don't have unrealistic expectations about how many ADUs are magically going to appear once this is legally allowed or authorized, because it's not. It's just not the easiest, most slam dunk financial investment you can make, and you know, in this day and age, finding a contractor is a royal pain in the butt as well. So this is, you know, it's not unless there's things that we do to make it easier and more attractive for people to build ADUs. I just don't. We'll get a certain amount of them, but we won't get nearly the amount that we could have, or we might hope to have.
I'm actually working with someone, though, that's doing kits for ADUs, you know, and then maybe smaller homes too. But he's really working on doing it from a kit program where you go to Home Depot and you can order it. And, you know, that to me seems really streamlined. You know, if they can go to, you know, Deschutes County, get the permit, buy the kit, and put it up.
I think I sent him to you.
Yes, you did. And I'm still working with him. He's got some East Coast investors, so, yeah, thank you. I think it seems like it seems practical.
Yeah, Commissioner Chang, to your point, it's not going to be for everybody. As I mentioned before, none of these are the only solution. It's buckshot. It's part of a bigger picture. But you have to hit all the buttons to make anything move, and to make any real progress.
Yeah. No, and I think it's a strategy with a lot of potential. I just think that somebody's going to have to put some low interest financing on the table for us to really realize the full, more of the full potential of that tool.
Would help a great deal.
And the other thing we learned, we were at the fire meeting Thursday morning at the fairgrounds with a lot of fire people from all over. And what they said was, remember what happened in Boulder not too long ago, where the fire went house to house to house? And when you talk about condensing the amount of space between houses and the fences, you've got these wood fences and they're all connected. Anyway, they said that's really something that we have to look at here. So what kind of materials are we using for our fencing and the hardening and everything? So just, another thing to worry about.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll add that one.
So Commissioners, if I may, if the board would like to support funding or partially funding this request, staff recommends the use of video lottery dollars, as it would not be eligible for ARPA funding. But of course, some other potential options are to postpone the discussion until a later date, or decide not to fund the request.
I think it would be, from the perspective that a big piece of the work being proposed here is legislative. I think it would be good for us to make a decision sooner than later, so that the Ben Chambers contractors or staff can be ready for the legislative session that's only a little bit more than 6 months away now.
Well, and I agree with that. So I want the Ben Chamber of Commerce to be our partner in advocating for housing and legislative partner in this. I'm hesitant to think that we want government to help pay the private chamber to tell us what to do. And I'm referring to us as government, but I want to be a partner with the chamber to go to the state legislature and say, hey, we need some other opportunities here. And my vision is private property opportunities, a house on a lot, and I don't know what size is, but with a front yard and a backyard. I'm not real excited about densifying. It's a city thing, and the state just wants it more and more dense. So the whole domain that we're talking in here isn't. I mean, I support the passion on this. I'm hesitant to fund it, though, and we've had this conversation. And I'm a chamber member, and I want the chamber to be independent and strong and be able to advocate to, our legislative efforts.
So I think one of the things you said, you were spreading this out over 2 years, is that correct?
Yes.
But you were asking for 50,000 now, but you were really going to use it over a 2-year period? Is that?
And Dan, the potential sources of funds for this would either be, for this request would either be lottery dollars or a general fund.
Yeah, I think we're trying to stick with just video lottery. Yeah, it's not eligible for ARPA due to the AMI is higher than
Right.
the low income threshold set by the Treasury.
Right.
Commissioners, if I may, I think something to underscore the legislative component and the timeline that Commissioner Chang mentioned. We all know it takes such a broad coalition, to your point, Commissioner DeBonne, to pass legislation. And so I think Katie's vision is to have the chamber be the convener of that, knowing that this work is taking place already in so many disparate areas of the state. So taking a look not only locally here with Central Oregon, but then how do we scale that to a statewide impact, knowing this is statewide legislation. That is time is of the essence to do that. And so I think by having a convener and by having support for that convening body is going to hopefully get things moving along in a more expedited fashion.
So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's a vision I have here. I mean, the day that Deschutes County has a position on a bill for housing, and the Ben Chamber has a vision and a position on a bill for housing, and then some legislator says, oh, well, didn't Deschutes County help pay the Ben Chamber to go do that? It just kind of makes it messy. I mean, that's kind of my point right there. I'd rather have it two independent groups being able to advocate, and if we're saying the same thing, let's celebrate that. So that's why I'm going where I'm going.
Well, I mean, EDCO has a legislative agenda every year, and a substantial amount of the funding from EDCO comes from local governments. I mean, and we might support those very same things. I don't have any concerns about that.
Well, as I say, I mean, years ago, Ben Chamber, that was the message. We don't take public dollars, and they're very independent from the city of Bend, and that was the moment for me. I was like, yeah. So now we're here, and I'm not trying to be trouble with this. I'm just trying to explain why I'm where I'm at.
So I see this as a collaborative effort. I think it's a public-private effort. I think we all will benefit from an end result that looks like more housing for the folks who have jobs here. And it's not the Bend Chamber's policy anymore to not receive public funding. I think that's short-sighted, frankly, because the power of collaboration is so much more, the success rate is so much higher. And we do represent businesses, let there be no doubt. But we have partnered with the Oregon Community Foundation on childcare initiatives and on giving money away through COVID to some of the businesses here in Deschutes County, frankly, that were in need. And so I think that I would rather position us as we have initiatives that we know benefit the employers and the human beings that work for them in our community. And I'm going to take money from wherever I can possibly find it in order to make those initiatives happen, as long as they align with the same end goal.
And I mean, when we're talking about this legislative work, one of the things I really like about this proposal is it's not just we're going to go to Salem and talk to the legislators. There's quite a lot of research and analysis that's going to go into the policy recommendations that come out of this chamber initiative. So frankly, I don't see a lot of other people doing that research and analysis in our community, and so I think that has unique value in some ways because we need that research and analysis to help guide us in our policy efforts. I mean, I could very well see some of the recommendations or some of the policy proposals that come out of this initiative being things that we pull into our platform as we as the county tries to go to talk to our legislators and show up in Salem in January. So there's, I am just saying that there's value here besides just having more people to show up in Salem with.
So I have a question about your little financial statement. It says 2020 funding on it, on the top. So this was from a couple years ago then? And you're just bringing this back?
That would be a typo.
I know. And then I'm going, annual survey, that's costing $35,000 for a survey?
Correct.
And then who's coming up with the other $16,500 per this budget if you've only have $67,000 now and you're asking for $50 from us?
Private sector.
So how much is the private sector actually coming in?
So far, almost $70,000. We have several contributors who are major contributors. We're grateful to Ben Broadband, Hayden Homes, and several others who have given us funding to get this up and running. I'm using the same model that we used with the Chamber when we started the efforts for the child care program. It's essentially the same thing. It's identifying issues that our members want us to bring forward. And they've got to be issues that they give skin in the game to make happen. And otherwise, I think that's where the power lies, is in coming directly from the folks who employ people here. So that's where we started our fundraising effort, frankly, and that's what's going to carry us year over year. And the reason why I'm parsing the $50,000 over 2 years is because it's a lot of money, and this isn't a one-year kind of an operation. And I'm trying to fund this between I started with the 2021 survey, going over the 2022 survey, and then into 2023 legislation. It has to span a couple of years at least.
So the City of Bend actually hasn't contributed then?
We have an ask-in, and we're expecting to hear any day.
So what if they split the 50 with us? No, I meant really.
Yeah, I could ask them to do that.
That, we're trying to be, we have a lot of capital out there that we're looking at. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, that's just my thought. I truly know it's a problem, and, someone I know just wrote a letter to the editor. I don't know if it's going to get printed or not, but he ran the strategy department at UCLA, and he was looking at rents and what they've done now, and how many homes now in Bend are actually rented out. Is it like 1,200 or something that are in that rental market?
It's definitely in that ballpark.
Right. So anyway, I mean, I know we need workforce housing, truly. I know it's a problem. So if we could split it with them, it's a thought.
So there's 50,000, and then there was like another 13,000 beyond that to make this whole. I
And we
mean,
will continue to fundraise for it.
so maybe we could consider splitting that total, the 50 plus the 17, with the City of Bend, 13.
Well, I like the idea of private investors in it. I mean,
Okay.
Truly, it's, I know we need to help them, but that's really who needs the employees. Well, I mean, the county needs them too at time. We've got our shortages. But then again, if things start cutting back, then maybe we won't be overemployed and have to do what we had to do years ago for CDD. Oh my gosh, is it raining again? Like someone has got to keep track of this. Anyway, I don't know. I think the 50,000 is the split, and then you could come back. We'll see if they would split that with us, and then we could look at the other.
Okay. So
I would support that.
if they are not willing to put in 25, would you be comfortable with an alternative of matching what the city gives? Whatever that happens to be, or where were your thoughts?
Yeah,
You mean
match
below
up to
25?
up to 25. Let's say they do 20, so we say, okay, we'll do 22, and then you still got a little bit out there, but at least we've matched them up to 25.
I would support that.
So do we need a motion?
I think so. Just
Okay.
for the record, please.
Since we don't have our legal with us today, we're lost without Dave. Where is that man? He must be driving over. It's probably snowing on the
You would have
bus.
been right there saying yes, real fast.
Okay.
I move an allocation of lottery funds to the Ben Chambers Middle Housing Initiative, what is the exact title?
Mid-Market Workforce Housing Initiative.
Mid-Market Workforce Housing Initiative, up to $25,000, matched by a commitment from the City of Bend. Is that reasonably complete for a?
I'll second it. Any further discussion? Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne?
No.
And the chair votes yes.
There you go.
See, I really didn't want to do that. This, I feel like if they're going to match it, I think that's
So-
a win-win.
That'd be great.
As I said, I'm looking forward to legislative discussions and making sure we're partners side by side and really advocating strong. So it's not that I'm against any of this, it's just this funding concept. Yep.
Thank you so much.
But I thank you for sending out those 4,000 postcards, because truly, if I'm sure
Absolutely.
they look really, attractive and catch somebody's eye, that maybe, and if my guy's little models get done, I could send him back, right? Yeah, and then we can get more housing in this, yes.
Commissioners, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Sarah, right? Yes, thank you for joining. Yes, thank you for being in person. Okay, last one, Envision Ben.
All right, thank you. Yes, the next one is Envision Ben. They are requesting $50,000. And as a reminder, they did come present to the board earlier this year in March. And Laura Fritz also provided a supplemental write-up in your packet materials today that speaks to how the overall project supports economic development. So if the board would like to support funding or partially funding this request, staff again recommends the use of video lottery fund dollars in support of those economic development objectives as outlined in that attachment. And this request would not be eligible for ARPA funding. Obviously, other potential options are to decide not to support funding or to discuss at a later date. We also had asked Laura to provide information about a specific proportionate amount that relates to economic development. She felt at this time they could not provide that level of specificity. And so one potential option could be to discuss later when they have that information.
And when might that be?
We're not sure. She didn't have a specific date in mind. It would be much further into the process.
It's also kind of a hard thing to, I actually brought a copy of the earlier vision that was developed in 2006 for Ben 2030, and there is among the 6 strategic components. There's one that is specifically called a vibrant economy that calls out a number of initiatives to help help support the economic vitality of the city of Bend and surrounding communities, having tracked that process pretty closely, I can tell you that EDCO and the chamber and other entities were integrally involved in that. So there's 1 out of 6 elements that's specifically focused on the economy, but the other elements, a quality environment, a strong community, with a focus on education, a well-planned city, which includes transportation elements. All of those things are also a part of the whole of what allows Bend to be a very vital place. You don't have good commerce without a working transportation. You don't attract employers and employees without good quality of life and good schools. So, this visioning effort certainly won't be able to claim full responsibility for the accomplishment of the vision elements that are laid out, that are developed as part of this process. But they will be able to claim some credit, and each one of those pieces contributes to the economic vitality of the community. So, and you can see the same thing with like the Sisters community vision. There are things that are very directly economic development elements, but there are also a whole lot of things that just contribute to a well-functioning, high quality of life community, which is part of what makes Sisters an economically vital place.
So with the, city council kind of rolling around right now, and there's going to be some new appointments with our comprehensive planning efforts for Deschutes County. with our Tumalo Community Plan effort that's going on. You know, if there's an envisioning project, I think of this as, you know, what can a community be doing? What could be the brand look and feel of something? You know, the cultural aspirations of a community. I'd like to see this out into the future, not right now, is kind of my thought. I mean, there's so many moving parts right now in the next 6 months to a year. Yeah, but, I mean, they're not asking that. You know, I've already talked to them. I sat down with some of them, like, hey, we're going full speed ahead. It's exciting. Okay.
Their process has started.
Yeah, so, but once again, I mean, all three of these today, I'm not interested in funding it.
I mean, this is not a city project, so I don't see how the makeup of the city council is relevant. I mean, this is a process to draw from the people of the city of Bend, who are all, you know, the people of Deschutes, are all people of Deschutes County as well, to draw from the people of the city of Bend, and you know, nearby communities, you know, what they want from their, you know, what they want from their community moving forward. And
Are they going to do anything with, on the topic of homeless issues, or funding the police, or the culture of the community in this?
I'm sure they will.
I mean, is there going to be any brain space for people for an envisioning effort with all the other things going on?
Yeah, I mean,
And that's my point.
You
We
know,
don't need to debate it.
like, they're not going to use these same six, they might use these same 6 categories, but, you know, safe, healthy people, a vibrant economy, a strong community, a well-planned city, creative learning culture, and a quality environment. Those were the six elements, you know, the 6 kind of pillars of the Bend, of the 2030 vision. And I would certainly anticipate that this effort is going to be comprehensive in that way, in the same way that the effort was comprehensive back in 2006, speaking to the big issues of the day.
So they did all that planning in 2006, and then the world kind of went to heck a couple years later. So did those plans get put on hold? Does anybody have any input on that?
No, I mean,
because I know, CDD had to start laying off people, in 2009? Is that when you did, or 10, 11, somewhere in there?
8 is when they started, when CTD started, but I think.
there was something in the range of 120, 130, 140 specific action items that came out of this 2006 visioning process. And last I had heard, probably about 85 or 90% of those actions had been completed. And again, you know, the Bend 2030 can't claim all the credit for those things being implemented, because clearly they were things that a whole lot of people in the community cared about. But, you know, what Bend 2030 could claim credit for is, you know, elevating those things in the public's attention and creating focus on them. And, you know, cheerleading and helping to do some of the kind of strategic partnership development that resulted in those things getting done. Yeah, it's not like a vision. I mean, as I'm sure you've seen with the Sisters visioning process, a vision isn't like it's not like a plan in the sense that, you know, like, here's your instructions to build, you know, your IKEA chair. Like, it's not you know, visions don't work at that level of detail. They identify big initiatives in the community that need to happen, and then hopefully they happen, and having those things identified in a vision and having people kind of line up behind them increase the probability that they will happen.
Well, I know one of the first things that Sisters Visioning wanted for the surveys was to get an urgent health care facility in Sisters, and you know, I don't think St. Charles is in a position to do that. The numbers aren't there. But, I mean, that was like the first thing they wanted, you know, and it's like, yeah.
But what else is in there? And how much
Well-
progress have they made on some of the other things?
Right.
You know, like that isn't that the park in the middle of downtown, wasn't that a vision element?
You mean transferring the school over to be a senior center?
No, the park.
Well, that's really what they want.
Well, there will be vision elements that take longer, and then there's quick wins. And the fact that those things have been identified in the vision, don't those increase the probability that they will happen at some point?
So Laura, here it says that they are saying the total cost is 300,000. Are they waiting for the last 50,000 from us? Or where are they at with their fundraising, do you know?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm happy to find out.
And how much is the city of Bend contributing? You don't know that either? No, okay. Yeah, well, I could bring that back after those questions were answered, but I would like to know. Yeah. Since I really was worried about, you know, alfalfa and, you know, their future, so that to me is like, it's more of an,
Hopefully,
we've got some time on here.
hopefully it's raining out there also.
Well, I hope so.
For alfalfa, we don't have the option of using lottery dollars, which are intended for.
But I don't understand why. I would think we could use lottery dollars. I mean, Dan, I think you should look that, review that again for me, please.
Certainly, Commissioners, we will look into it all, call the chief and review the video lottery requirements and eligibility again.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
The last request is the City of Sisters and Citizens for Community request for $2,500 for their Sisters Country Vision implementation support. And we've coordinated with various staff. And based on that, if the board is supportive of funding this request, we would recommend the use of the CDD Long Range Planning Consulting Funds. Of course, other options are to not support the funding today or to have the discussion at a later date.
Oh, I like Nick's idea to use the CDD funds. Oh, Peter's here too. I love it. Why not?
Oh, Peter's dollars, yeah.
Peter's dollars, not our dollars, Peter's dollars.
And just to clarify that, those are savings below, you know, basically from the consultant costs coming in below the projected budget. So is that correct?
That's correct, Peter. Yeah.
So I just like the Bend 2030 or the Envision Bend project, I'm a big supporter of community visioning projects. I don't have any concerns about supporting this request. I do, my one question is, are we routing this money through the city to Citizens for Community for a specific reason, or would it make more sense to just send the money directly to Citizens for Community because they have their 501c3, and it just adds transaction costs to pass it through the city?
I'm certainly happy to follow up on that. City of Sisters, as you know, is the one who applied as the fiscal sponsor, but I'm happy to connect with them and I'm sure we could give the funds directly to Citizens for Community. Can't imagine they would have a problem with that. Nick, do you?
Do you give the money directly to C4C as opposed to the City of Sisters? That's the question? Oh, I think that's fine. I mean, just as we utilize the other dollars for a contractor, I think they're the contractor, C4C is the contractor for this project. yeah, I guess their notes are C4C will invoice the City of Sisters monthly, the city will provide, so whichever I think we can, whatever the board approves, we can make that happen.
And one thing good to note about the financials through April 30th, Peter, is that you are at 88% for total resources to date, and the year-to-date was 83.3%. So your revenue is ahead, so that looks great. So perhaps we can use that funding. But what about their, remember they needed to have their reserve, and it wasn't quite up. Has it moved up at all? Because this number looks a little better, Dan?
Reserves?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd probably feel more comfortable having Sherry or Peter speaking to that, but I know their reserves have gone up quite a bit over the last year, their reserve levels due to fees and whatnot, but you're asking based on the 88%.
Well, I'm just saying they're ahead by 5%, so that's good. And hopefully, what was it, like 10 and a half months or something that we were at? But was it 2 years that were supposed to be our goal?
I mean, if you want to come up, you can, but otherwise, I mean, the key is CDD's building division and electrical divisions reserves are very strong. The overall departments, less so. That's probably 4 to 6 months, whereas building is probably in the 12-month range, something like that. So they average out to that
So
9 to 10 months.
Okay, all right.
Something like that, I'm guessing, big picture.
Good, thank you.
Well, so for the sisters' request, this is from the City of Sisters. I understand your concept of trying to give it directly to C4C, but it sounds like there'd be probably as much brain space in understanding why we sent money directly to them, because they've already figured out that they're just going to invoice. So I'm just thinking we change their plan if we sent money to the nonprofit directly. So it may be more efficient just to leave their request clear, respond directly to the request and just leave it like that. I understand what you were saying, Commissioner Chang, but.
Yeah, I don't see how that reduces efficiency. I mean, just like, having administered lots of funds at both in the public sector and in the nonprofit sector, sending funds directly to where they're ultimately going is always more efficient than routing it through a whole another entity just because.
So they don't take 10%?
Finance is happy to reach out to Cities of Sisters, see if there's anything that they need to do for this, for invoice.
I'd be open to either or, I guess. Yeah, just whatever's the easier.
Oh, we need a motion
I'm
on
not
that.
trying to be negative, I'm just trying to be positive.
We need a motion, folks. Somebody want to make a motion?
I move allocation of $2,500 of saved funds from, what would
You can probably just say, of the CDD, of the Community Development Department's long-range consulting funds.
Of the Community Development Department's long-range consulting funds to the Sisters Country Vision Implementation Project, with those funds allocated, with those funds being awarded directly to C4C, Citizens for Community.
I was going to be supportive of C4C or the City of Sisters, whichever is,
Okay. So
Or the
that's a
City of
second?
Sisters.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
Whichever is more efficient.
That's what I was thinking.
Almost certain will be C4C.
I'll
direct.
second it.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that's all of them. We do have that ask, 30,000 from Lapine, that's still floating around, right?
We do have the ask from you're referencing, I think Commissioner Adair's referencing the Lapine Senior Center.
Correct.
Ask, yeah, and I'd be happy to talk about that now if you'd like to, or in a future.
Sure.
Please do.
There was also, didn't Lapine Community Kitchen also kind of just ask for a status update on their ARPA request?
The Lapine Community Kitchen asked for a ARPA status update regarding their COVID impact pay, right? Additional, it was a request for I believe 80,000 for incentive pay during COVID for a few staff members, and if the board would like to hear more about that, we can certainly get them in front to do a presentation on a Wednesday, but I haven't heard anything in that direction. So I've been giving them the direction that we have not heard anything back on that specific proposal yet.
Do we want to consider those two ARPA requests at the same time at some point?
Sure. I thought we'd already discussed the one. They wanted us to put money on top of their salary,
Yes.
and I thought we passed on that, honestly.
There has not been an expressed interest.
Yeah, so, but they're asking again about it.
They are
Okay.
asking every couple weeks.
So we should give them a clear answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should bring them both up then.
Okay. And so the Lapine Senior Center, though, is $30,000 is their ask right now. I've asked them to, this is their second or third proposal, I've asked them to clarify that this is for food assistance only. We can't fund the parking lot, that's just not going to be ARPA eligible, but if they can attest to the fact that this is $30,000 for food assistance, specifically that isn't being covered. I know they work with a nonprofit entity that covers part of their food assistance, but not all of it. Then I would feel comfortable with that being eligible for ARPA. But this is, I think their first proposal was from a financial end. That was not eligible because they had done better during the pandemic in terms of beginning total fund balance. The second was kind of for capital expenditure, and that wasn't eligible. But for food assistance, as long as the funds are going to that, it could be eligible. 30,000. Mm-hmm.
And you haven't heard from Sisters Park and Recreation, have you?
I have not.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And then if we do anything for like childcare, expanding our program, can we, as Deschutes County, apply for any grant funding? Remember, we set aside $500,000 for grants for people in childcare. Do you know if there's any of that funding left? And would we be ineligible or eligible to apply for funding that we had set up?
I believe that's going through Neighborhood Impact. Are you?
Right.
Your Neighbor Impact, are you indicating that you would want to apply for some of that funding?
Well, if there's any way that we can enlarge our county childcare program, because we truly need to do that. We've been talking about that for what, months, years? And I was just wondering if we would.
County Employee Program.
Right, yeah.
Or-
Mhm. Yeah, I'm just wondering if that's any way we could be, would we be ineligible?
That small grant program was kind of like a facilities program that Neighbor Impact was running, right?
I know. I'm just wondering what the status of it is. It was $500,000. Has any of that money been used to date? What?
And we can get a status update if you want.
Yeah, I'd love a status update.
So what would be good, I'm hearing, is a status update on Neighbor Impact. I am not sure what our contract is with the Deschutes County employees and if that would be eligible.
Right, I know.
for that.
I know it's
Have to look it
an
up.
ask, but, we're,
That's basically, there's not really money, like cash involved in that, right? We offer the space to Munchkin Manor and they guarantee slots. And, then the overall cost of their program is less than many local providers because they don't have to pay rent.
Right.
So it's not like we're sending them a certain amount of money.
Right. If Munchkin Manor is operating, and like I said, I'd have to look at the contract and exact, because I'm not familiar with it yet. But I think I would need to look at that contract to make sure that we're not crossing funds over back to the government and whatnot. But if that wasn't the case and it's private, then certainly I would imagine Munchkin Manor could apply for the $500,000 that we sent to Neighbor Impact.
well, not all of it, but just maybe if some of it.
Yeah, portion
I
of it.
wouldn't want all of
Right.
it back, too. That would really be,
Technically, they could apply for it all. They probably won't get it.
right. But truly,
They were
if-
thinking like $50,000 chunks are smaller, right?
yeah, if we
Smaller
can do
mom-and-pop
something
shops.
to help with that program, that really needs some help.
Okay, so I will look into that. I'll, for our next ARPA meeting, we can get neighborhood impact here. Would you like the Lapine Senior Center to present for food assistance as well on the next one, or are you trying to make a motion?
Sure, are we trying to do this next Monday, or when are we talking about?
It would probably be
2 Wednesdays, the 22nd?
the 22nd's not going to work because we have the adopted budget and
Right.
year-end cleanup. So we could either do the 29th, would probably be the earliest at this point.
Okay.
Okay. And then I'll reach out to the commissioners individually to see if you guys would like to have the Lapine Community Kitchen present as well, or just give them a clear answer.
Okay, and also Sisters Park and Rec had they were hoping to get some grant funding for their program. I'll let Jennifer know to get something in.
Sure. And I'll check just to make sure, but I don't believe I've received anything yet.
Okay. And I know, I hadn't seen, I'm sure I'd be copied on it, so, anyway. All right, good.
Okay.
Any other business?
I mean, while we're on the topic of childcare for county employees, I would be curious whether funds that we've put in the health reserve could be used in some way to support either to support employees who are trying to find healthcare or childcare, or to be used in some kind, say Munchkin Manor said, hey, if we had, $120,000 we could knock out this wall and, expand our space and have more capacity. Whether we could use health reserve funds for, essentially to do something for, childcare related for employees.
Specifically the ARPA Health Reserve? Or are you?
No, I'm thinking about our health, what's it called? It's called the health reserve, right?
The Health Benefits Reserve?
Yes.
Okay.
Or whether that's, kind of childcare and healthcare, or,
Talk to Human Resources, Kathleen, and other folks that work on that, and we can look into that. I would just say that right now we have a large budget adjustment coming towards the board on the 22nd related to the health benefits funds. Its claims were approximately $5 million higher than anticipated this year. So we've been, because of pent-up healthcare demand due to COVID is what the actuaries are saying, and that just came in, to my knowledge, about a month and a half ago. So this is fairly new news to us. So it's going to significantly drop our reserve balance. We had been planning on kind of spending that down slowly, and we've succeeded in doing that now at this point.
Didn't it drop it down to like 8 million or something?
I believe it did, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we wanted to do, but
Maybe not
yes.
this fast.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember during budget week, you're telling us that it was, I don't remember the number 5 million.
Well, no, it was an adjustment of 5, but it was going to bring it down to 8, and it was up way high for so long.
I think there was a point where we thought it might be closer to 3, and now it's 5. We're also bringing in some additional revenue, so we'll somewhat net out. But I'm just cognizant that, yes, we've seen it slowly going down, but when you have a drastic drop like that, we're going to have to really do our homework to make sure that there's some not continuing volatility there.
Right.
Well, you have to look at the whole country. People were not getting their health care. The nightmare that created, truly. People did not get their cancer screenings. All kinds of things didn't happen for those 2 years. Americans have lost 2 years on their life expectancy. I mean, this is, at the time, other people tried to bring that message out, and it wasn't being heard. And it's really, please, people, go to the doctor now. Oh, great. So we're good to retire now. The meeting is now over, so we will have Wednesday morning. Thank you very much, Ryan.